Good afternoon, everyone in the room. Before I give our committee introduction, I want to give you an update of what the order will be. We had advertised LD 2049 for hearing today. LD 2049, the hearing has been postponed. So we will start with LD 2018, then we will do LD 2089, followed by LD 2101. And now I will begin with our committee introductions. I am Representative Rader and will be presiding over this public hearing today of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. The purpose of the hearing is to invite testimony from members of the public regarding proposed legislation that is pending before this committee. The committee will hear testimony from persons present who wish to speak for, against, or neither for nor against the bill or bills to be heard today. With leave of the chair, committee members may ask questions of any person testifying today. Other questions are not permitted. Whether or not you testify, you may submit written testimony to the committee. Please also be aware that you are still able to do so. Please be mindful that testimony is public and available to all once it is presented. Persons testifying at the public hearing today are advised that the hearing is live streamed and may be seen and heard by persons watching online, and that a recording of the meeting will be archived. Members of the committee, before I ask you to introduce yourselves, I have several important items to address related to the format of this meeting. If you're in the room with us, please mute your audio and microphone on your electronic devices, including members sitting here at the Horseshoe. This will prevent audio disruptions both in the room and online. Second, for those of us joining using Zoom, if the name you used to sign into Zoom is not the same as the name you used on the legislature's website to register to testify, it may be difficult for us to identify you when it is your turn to testify. We will not close the hearing until we've given everyone on Zoom an opportunity to testify. All questions from committee members must be made with leave of the chair. And I would like to start to my left with introductions with Representative Collins.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Collins. I represent the towns of Sydney and Vassalboro in District 61. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Beck, State Representative for House District 122, part of South Portland.
Good afternoon, Representative Valley Geiger, District 42, Rockland, most of Owl's Head, and the islands of North Haven, Cree Haven, Matinicus, and the Muscle Ridge.
Representative Gary Drinkwater, District 27.
Representative Amy Rader, District 23, a portion of Bangor, and we will wrap around back to the left once we finish introductions to the.
Excuse me, Senator Joe Rafferty representing Berwick, North Berwick, Wells, Kennebunk, and Kennebunk Fort.
Good afternoon, Dick Bradstreet, Senate District 15. That's Augusta and 5 surrounding smaller communities.
Representative Marshall Archer, District 129, part of Saco. Thank you.
I'm Representative Mike Soboleski. I represent the 73rd District in the Western Mountains, parts of Franklin, Oxford, and Somerset counties.
For today's hearing, we will be taking testimony from people in the room and those who have registered to testify electronically. Pursuant to the committee rules, this committee will give members of the public priority when we take testimony. Only the sponsor and co-sponsors of the bill will be recognized before members of the public. And just a note, when you're presenting testimony, we have a 3-minute clock here. If your testimony goes beyond that 3 minutes, we will gently cut you off. We do not mean to be rude, and perhaps someone will ask a question to allow you to finish your point. But we will take the testimony in the following order: those speaking in favor of the bill, those speaking in opposition, and those speaking neither for nor against, but who wish to offer additional information to the committee. If you are in the room and have prepared testimony, please provide 20 copies to our clerk. Ms. Becca. Testimony submitted electronically through the legislature's testimony portal is available by clicking on the committee materials link in the committee's webpage. Concept draft amendments, if submitted, are also available via this link. When you're called upon, I will ask you to state your name, your place of residence, and any organization you represent. When you introduce yourself, please be sure to indicate how you would like members to refer to you and to address you. Before I open the hearing to testimony, I will remind folks in the room once again, mute your audio and microphone from electronic devices. And as a reminder, members in the room are asked to use the microphone at their seat while speaking. For those who are joining on Zoom, please keep your microphone muted until it is your turn to speak and you are promoted to panelist. We will begin the hearing now, public hearing on LD 2018. I see the sponsor in the room and I will invite Representative Matheson to present. Yes, Representative?
Thank you, Representative. May I ask, you, do we have someone here from Spring Consulting Group LLC who will be testifying that might help from the actuarial company? You know, whoop,
Sorry, I can't answer you until I don't have the kill switch like the senator does. I'm not sure that is a question. I am happy to ask after we've heard from the sponsor and no co-sponsor, so I will ask for that then. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Christy Matheson. I guess Senator Tipping is not here, Representative Roeder, and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. I am Representative Christy Matheson. I represent the lovely Seaside District of Kittery. Yes, we are still in Maine, all the way down there in the southern tip. I'm here to present a bill from the Maine Department of Labor, LD 2018, an act to amend the requirements governing self-insurance plans in the Paid Family Medical Leave Benefits Program. This bill clarifies that private group trusts, privately run employer risk sharing pools that lack the oversight and consumer protections built into the public paid family leave program and would undermine the stability of the statewide risk pool are not permitted under the PFML law. Since 2023, the PFML program has been working through a detailed implementation process to build a public plan with a shared risk pool across thousands of Maine workers and employees and employers. This structure is designed to ensure stable, reliable paid family and medical leave benefits beginning May 1st of 2026. The state plan model, built around a single statewide public risk sharing pool, was developed through extensive study and adopted by the legislature 3 years ago to ensure the stability and fairness across thousands of Maine workers and employers. The law already provides two well-regulated alternatives. Employers can purchase a third-party commercial insurance, which has grown into a strong and competitive market, or they can self-insure if they have the financial capacity to fully fund their own plan. Both of these pathways operate under clear oversight through the PFML program itself and in collaboration with the Bureau of Insurance. This ensures benefits are reliable and that workers are protected. Over the last 6 years on the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee, I've seen firsthand how critical the Bureau of Insurance's oversight is to protecting Maine people. Regulatory frameworks for insurance and self-insurance products provide clear, enforceable consumer protections and ensure any insurance product sold in Maine is financially stable, compliant with state law, and capable of delivering the benefits consumers and workers are promised. Without this level of oversight, workers and employers would be exposed to the risks of underfunded plans, inadequate benefits, or unfair claim practices, problems that would undermine the integrity of the PFML system. For that reason, introducing a new exception for a private pooled plan, one that would fall outside of these established oversight structures and was not envisioned when the law was enacted, would significantly weaken the public plan on track to begin paying out benefits later this year. The legislature intentionally created a public plan that balances oversight, accountability, and strong consumer protections. Those principles should continue to guide our policymaking as the program evolves. Maintaining that foundation is essential to preserving the significant process that the Department of Labor has already made to implement the law effectively and on schedule. I'm glad to try to answer general questions. I do have oversight of insurance with the Bureau of Insurance, chairing the HCIFS committee, but I would like to offer the department as a better positioned oversight for the details of the PMFL program. So I encourage the committee to maybe direct those program-specific questions directly to the department. But I thank you for your time and consideration on LD 2018. And just as a side, I only have 2 bills this year, and they both are being presented right now, which is, that always happens in the legislature, right? So I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions for the bill sponsor? Yes, Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. And thank you for your service on that committee too, by the way.
Sure.
6 years, that's impressive. So let's talk to me about your protections that you do in your committee
Mhm.
that are not provided by these companies that want to have their own programs. My question is this: what protections are you talking about in your committee to protect the people that purchase it?
Sure. So I'm talking about the Bureau of Insurance and how important it is for them to look at the fiduciary requirements of insurance plans. So for public insurance plans, they have to be regulated so that we know that they can actually, one, offer the services that they're indicating that they can, and that they have the fiduciary background to be able to actually support those claims. So not only with health insurance, but with liability insurance, with car insurance, all of those. They're a really important consumer protection service and department.
And if I may, and wouldn't you agree a surety bond is also a guarantee?
I'm gonna let the department answer that one.
I'm setting them up.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Soboleski.
Thank you, Representative. Hello.
Hi.
In your testimony, you say for that reason, including a new exception for a private pooled plan, one that would fall outside these established oversight structures. What are the established oversight structures it's not inside of? It's within compliance of the law.
I'm gonna let the department answer that, Representative.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Senator.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I'll defer most questions that I have to
Thank
the
you.
department, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you, and that's about the retroactivity portion of the bill going back to July of last year. In your experience, do you know of any other bills that have been designed that are applied retroactively?
Yes, the workman's compensation bill was also retroactive for the firefighters. That was a retroactive bill as well. The one that you guys unanimously passed last session.
Thank you. That was a benefits bill, right?
That's correct.
Okay, then it's, okay, yeah, thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, Representative Collins.
This may be a question for the department.
Sorry, I think the details of the PFML would be best suited for them, correct?
No worries. In paragraph 2, you mentioned that the pooling is not permitted under the PMFLA law. If that is the case, why is this bill necessary?
My understanding is that there's some clarification that needs to happen in terms of those that are considering doing this pooling. And so it's my understanding that in order to, anytime you pass a bill, there are sometimes clarifications around the statute. And I think they're just confirming what the intent of the statute was.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your
And,
time.
Representative Soboleski, do you want to articulate your question really quickly?
Thank you, Representative. I was just wanted to know if there was someone here from the actuarial company who did the study, who provided this document. I think it would, whether the questions go to them or to the department, or, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
And if there is no representative here today, we can request one for the work session as well. And I would like to invite up a representative from the department.
Good afternoon. Senator Tipping, Representative Rader, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Luke Monahan, and I'm the Director of the Bureau of Paid Family Medical Leave within the Department of Labor. I'm here to testify in support of LD 2018. The Paid Family Medical Leave, or PFML, enabling legislation specifically created a state trust fund managed by the state treasurer for the pooling of costs and risks across employers and workers statewide. The legislation also provided employers with two alternatives, optional alternatives, a substantially equivalent fully insured or self-insured private plan. No other coverage models are authorized in the law. This bill before you is because of an issue of private group trust has been raised. The department has interpreted the statute to read that only specifically identified coverage models are authorized. This bill clarifies that sharing of risks and costs outside of the public trust is prohibited. For background, the PFML program has been developed since 2021, when the Paid Family Medical Leave Commission was established. The commission's finding and recommendations became the PFML bill that was submitted in 2023. Private group trusts were not discussed during the commission's work, and they were not discussed as part of the public hearing or work sessions on the bill itself. Further, private group trusts were not raised during the department's lengthy rulemaking process, excuse me, in 2024. The department maintains that private group trusts were not envisioned during the program development process and are not authorized in the statute. Current statute does allow employers the option to purchase or self-insure individual substantially equivalent private plans that best suit their needs and those of their workers. Our experience so far is that Maine's largest employers have the resources to adopt fully insured or self-insured private plans. To date, over 1,800 employers have selected one of these two options, covering about a third of the Maine workforce. It has always been the intent of the law and the state plan to be the group plan for all the all their employers and workers. These are typically the businesses and workers that don't have the same resources as those larger entities. Risk pools are inherently stronger and less costly with greater participation. Allowing multiple risk pools reduces their size, increases the risk and costs in the long run. Therefore, the department strongly recommends that only group trusts remain the public one. This concludes my testimony, but I am happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. Nice to see you again, Mr. Monahan.
Yeah, good to see you.
So I need some clarification on private group trusts.
Yep.
Give me your definition of a private group trust.
So the private group trust would be what the Bureau of Insurance calls a self-insurance group or an alternative risk pool. It's the pooling of financial resources to a common fund or a spreading of risk pools through identity agreements that would spread out the risk. In workers' compensation, there's statutory authority that authorizes the alternative risk pool market, and there's pages of regulations. And I think you'll get a letter from the Bureau of Insurance that outlines that in the workers' compensation statute. Currently, there's no authorization in the PFML law as it exists. So our interpretation, since the statute does not explicitly allow it, is that it's disallowed. I think there's others who see it as, since it's explicitly not disallowed, it is allowable. And that is exactly the issue that's being litigated in the court currently.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may, can you show us in the rules or the law where it prohibits group trusts?
So again, it's not authorized by statute like it is in the workers'
Could
compensation.
you refer us to that statute for
The
paid family medical leave?
statute for paid family medical leave is the PFML statute. We can get you that.
Maybe for the work session,
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
But the Bureau of Insurance will give you the statutory reference for workers' compensation where there is express statutory authority to create an alternative risk pool market or a self-insured groups.
But we're here to talk about, I'm sorry, I'm confused. You're talking about workman's comp.
Yeah.
Now but this bill is to deal with paid family medical leave. What's the connection between the two?
Because there is no express permission in this paid family medical leave law to establish alternative risk pools.
And for the work session, I'd like to see that. Thank
Yep.
you.
Additional questions. Representative Skold, followed by Representative Slowakowski.
Thank you. Representative Skold from Portland, Maine, District 119. The sponsor indicated that there were some employers who had been looking at this private pool plan and seeing that it's not allowed in the statute and that this bill would further clarify that the department's understanding. What would be your recommendation or advice for those who are hoping to pursue that option?
Well, currently there is a very robust private plan market in the state. We have 20 separate fully insured private carriers that offer substantially equivalent plans for PFML. Those are licensed insurance carriers, licensed to do business in the state of Maine. There's 20 such plans online on our website. There's also the option to individually self-insure. An individual employer can get a insured bond to run their own program if they have financial means to do so on their own. That is allowable in statute. And we do have roughly 100 employers out of the 1,800 that have private plans that are fully insured at the individual level. So about 5% of the private plan market.
Just a follow-up. Would it be your recommendation? It looks like in the testimony, you said that the only group trust to remain the public one. Can you explain that a little bit more?
So of the 13 states that do PFML, 12 have the same model that we do, which is there is the largest group trust. The state plan is the pooling of all, or the insurer of first resort, where everybody is by default. That's to bring costs down for everybody. There's only one state that has a private plan kind of mandate where somebody must receive private insurance, and there is no state plan. That's New York. And the state of Maine could certainly look at that option. That's not what was considered by the commission. We chose to go the other way with the other 12 states, in which there's a centralized trust fund in the state plan that covers all the employers that traditionally don't have the financial resources to provide for PFML as a primary insurer. If we're moving more towards a workers' compensation model in which there's an insurer of last resort, that is a completely different program design than those envisioned by the commission.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. So earlier you said that pooling was not discussed when we were working the bill. It wasn't raised during rulemaking, and there's nothing authorized in the statute that allows for it. Are you saying now that with the retroactive part of it, that anyone that's gotten a plan to this point, they're going to have to walk away from that plan and turn around and pay you guys all the way back to last year?
There's only one current employer that is not in compliance. All the employers that were that have tried to apply or had applied for this group trust were allowed to. They kept their application date of when they submitted the private plan. We held the application and we allowed them to come into compliance, whether that was going to a fully insured plan, come back to the state plan, or go to an individual self-insurance plan. All but one company complied. We only have one company in non-compliance currently. That's the one that set forward the litigation. And we're holding that application. We haven't taken any action. We have not revoked the plan until the litigation plays out.
Follow up. One company, your actuarial report shows that you're going to have $429 million in that fund by 2035. What does it matter where they get their policy from, as long as they're complying with having a paid family medical leave policy under the statute?
In terms of like we're having too much money, is that the concern?
No, I'm saying that you don't need the money, obviously, to do this.
Well,
so why take it away from them?
So somebody
already have
this
it.
is a self-contained system. It's revenue in, claims out, right? So if we have a surplus of money in the fund, that potentially justifies the dropping of the premium rate, which was always the hope. 1% is a conservative start point. Most states operate at less than 1%. The average is actually 0.7 to 0.88. If you look at PFML states, we want to eventually drop the premium rate for all people in Maine so that it's more affordable for all people in Maine, and specifically small businesses that historically cannot fund this.
I have more, I'll wait.
Thank you. Additional questions? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. Going back to the your statement that there's no specific authority granted, I've received a correspondence from a number of businesses that did get approval, and then it was rescinded. Why would they have gotten initial approval if there wasn't a statute already? If there were some certainty about that?
So we had actually, and this is in our public affidavit, but we had actually told, there was a consulting company, a lawyer consulting company that reached out to us about a group that was interested in starting group trusts. This was back in March. We said that's not allowable under statute. We clarified in our FAQ at the time. We started working with the TPA that was working with that insurance company at the time, or with that law firm, they said they were individually self-insuring their clients, and they were submitting bonds that they were individually insured. So they were approved because at face value, we had no idea there was a trust fund behind this, a private trust fund. One of the employers accidentally uploaded, we think, a document that showed an indemnity agreement to the PFML Group Buying Trust Authority. I believe they call themselves. It's in the affidavit. In which there's an indemnity agreement to a larger private group trust. That's when we found out that this group trust existed because we don't have regulatory authority over these group trusts. We didn't even know they existed because we had said no. At that point, the applications were held that were pending. They were allowed to come into compliance. People that had approved plans were allowed to come into compliance. Only one employer chose to stay out of compliance, and they filed the litigation.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up, sir?
So I guess I'm curious if there's such about a certainty about what you just stated, why would this bill even be necessary if it's already been decided?
So that this doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Additional questions? Representative Drinkwater, followed by Representative Sobolewski.
Let's just switch a little bit and talk about administration.
Yeah,
Is administration paid for from the fund?
from the public fund, yes,
Public fund is the
premiums.
premium. See, having been party to the original intent and everything, we were told that that administration would not be coming from the fund.
It is.
So is that a concern of yours? Is that the cost of administration?
Of the state plan?
Yeah.
No, as long as that in statute, the premiums, the state fund, the trust fund pays for claims and for administrative costs of the public program. And we have to, the department's capacity is we have to keep operating costs under 10% of total revenue from the year before. You should have the actuary study. If not, we can get it for you. It's online. Our operating costs are projected to be under 10% for the next 10 years.
I would just like to read section 850E for you for just a second from this study that we had done on putting guardrails on
Yeah.
the fund. And this is quoting statute. Funds may not be expended, released, appropriated, or otherwise disposed of for any other purpose except to pay family and medical leave benefits to covered individuals. So can you show me? and
It's
again, for the
in
work
statute.
session,
I can
but
grab it.
if
Yeah.
I just may finish.
Yep.
For the work session, I'd just like to see what authority do you have to pay administrative costs out of the fund?
Yes, we can get that statute. There's a section under that says or administrative costs. Yep.
This is worthless then.
Representative Sobolewski?
Thank you, Representative. Sir, if I remember correctly, when we first ran this bill through here, there was $25 million put in upfront cover administrative costs. But you're saying that the administrative costs are now coming out of the fund.
That was
Now,
implementation. Yep.
Yep. I'm getting this, sir. Hold on. In the actuarial report, it shows 2025, you've spent an additional $13 million just in 2025. Seems there are nothing being paid out. That has to be an administrative cost. So has it been a total of $38 million you've used in administrative costs so far?
No, I can get you the number. We actually underspent our implementation costs by I think about 5 million.
So what's the 13 figure?
That was mostly Aflac implementation fees.
I'm sorry?
Aflac implementation fees, our claims administrator.
So you've used all of the 525?
We have not used the 25. We had about 5 million left over, I believe. I can get you the figure.
Would you please?
Yep.
Thank you. Additional questions? Senator?
Thank you. Yes, you've expressed some concern about the solvency of the fund. Is it your opinion that the benefits are at risk, or is it just the administrative costs that we're talking about?
I'm not concerned about the solvency of the fund. I'm concerned if there's a huge spike in the private plan opt-out rate. The main structuring of how the program is structured currently is that Maine is unique in that we have a two-tiered premium system in which employers of 15 or more pay 1% premiums. Employers of less than 15, it's a small business exemption, only pay 0.5% of premiums. The vast majority of employers who have opted for private plans, well over 95%, are employers that are paying 1% premium. If we create a third market pool, an alternative risk pool that pulls a larger proportion of people out of the state plan, it has the assumed potential, the likely potential that it's also going to pull out a higher percentage of 1% employers from the state pool. The higher percentage you have coming out that is 1% from the state pool, the more you're putting the costs on small businesses and employees at small businesses and putting at risk what I think was an important part of this law, which is the small business exemption. We might need to look at that in the future if private plan opt-out rate increases dramatically.
Thank you. So I guess the goal of these businesses are to kind of minimize the administrative costs as much as they can because the benefits are what they're going to be. So what would the state do in order to encourage efficiency so that they can lower their administrative costs?
Oh, we certainly keep, our budget in mind. Like I said, we underspent on our implementation costs by I think about 5 million. And we're well under the 10% for the next 10 years.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. Sir, when we were working the bill, the U.S. Department of Labor I read an estimate on it and I talked about it here in the committee. An estimate of 26,000 people were going to go out on leave the very first year. In Minnesota, on January 1st, the very beginning of their program, 18,000 people walked out within 5 days.
Yeah.
What do you think the impact is going to be? How many do you think? Are you guys prepared for that, or what do you think?
No, I'm glad you brought up Minnesota so I can contextualize. They had a soft launch as well the month or two before, but they had several companies involved. They also had, in their structuring of their program, they don't have the disqualifier that if you've used family medical leave in the prior year, it reduces your paid family medical leave in that first year. So they had a huge spike, not a huge spike, but a spike of applications of people who were taking bonding leave for a second time, essentially in the same year. They had taken 12 weeks of unpaid FMLA and were turning around and applying for a new 12 weeks of PFML. That's not allowable under the structuring of our program. If somebody's previously taken FMLA within the prior year, they cannot take another 12 weeks of PFML in the current year. So there will be less of a spike in bonding claims than we had in Minnesota. The other thing with Minnesota is it's 5 times the size, the population of Maine. So 18,000 is about 3,000 for us. That's not far off what we're expecting. Also, of those first 6,000 applications that were considered, this was the article I read, 50% were denials, and most of those were erroneous applications to the state plan with people that were covered in the private plan. So they weren't applications that were approved, they were denials. We're going to hopefully avoid the erroneous applications that we'll deny if we get them, because we're putting out notices this week to all employers that they need to notify their employees if they're covered under a private plan and how to apply so they don't apply to us and we don't have numbers that are misleading.
Follow up? Thank you. There was nothing in this original bill that protected the employer. There's nothing in this bill that protects the employer. So there's this huge concern that once we come to May 1st, there's going to be an exodus coming out of our workforce, and they don't have an extra stock of people waiting. Yeah, you go ahead and fill in. What do we say to them?
So the actuaries projecting there'll be 4% in the first year, 4% of the workforce. And remember, this is a 12-week benefit. The average is not actually 12-week. The average is projected to be 9 weeks. So we're talking about 1% of the workforce at any one time.
I'll wait.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Collins, followed by Representative Drinkwater.
There we go. So I'm confused. You said it was 3%, then you said it was 4% of the workforce,
4%.
but then you just said 1%.
Good.
And even if it's the 4%, it's like almost 22,000 employees that will be pulled out of the workforce. And this is on this actuary study that I have before me. So can
No.
you just clarify?
Yeah, it won't be 22,000 at one time is what I'm saying. It's not 4% at one time. It's 4% usage for the year. And if it's a 12-week benefit, we're talking about 1% of the workforce at one time per quarter. Yeah. And actually less than that because people don't use a full 12 weeks. The average leave is about 8 to 9, I believe, projected in the actuary report. So less than 1% of the workforce at any one time.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm seeing how this might be for the work session, but where's the specific authority granted to the DOL to prohibit employers from cooperating with one another to reduce the administrative and overhead costs in implementing a self-insured private plan?
So that's that whole argument that we're saying it's explicitly not allowable in statute, like workers' comp does for alternative risk pools or self-insured groups. The other side is arguing that since it's explicitly not disallowed, it's allowable. Unlike workers' compensation statutory authority of such, that's being played out in litigation. And but our read is our position.
Well, I guess I would like to see that statute for the work session. Thank you.
I believe we've already asked for that. Are there additional questions? Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're talking, you keep talking about group self-insurance. Is there a difference between group and individual self-insurance? Because this appears to be the case that we're talking about here is a group of individual entities who are forming together to get a group rate rather than form a group.
It's more than that
explain the
though, and we,
difference?
we don't have the documents because they never actually appealed. We requested the documents and they were sent to us, which is great. We don't actually know that we have audit capacity over the third party entity, but if they sent us some documents, there are indemnity agreements that is covering each other's costs if one employer were to fail. The other concern, one besides the group pooling of resources, we don't know if there's an actuarial study. We don't know how they're setting their rates. We don't know if the rates are going to spike next year. And then people need to come back to the state plan. But also they can remove an employer at any time if they're found to be a high claim employer. And if they remove an employer from the trust fund, then they're not covered under a private plan. We need to then subsume them back into the state plan. So we have concerns. This is not individual self-insurance where each employer is running their own plan. There's absolutely a larger entity in which there are indemnity agreements and group pooling of financial resources.
Can those insurers set their own rates?
The carriers?
Yes.
The carriers price each other, but they also have huge regulatory oversight from the BOI. You know, that's why 95% of the plans in Maine are sold by fully insured carriers, insurance carriers. And I think that's appropriate because they're properly regulated.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Drinkwater, followed by Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you. So will the administration have the authority to go in and audit these private plans
So
to make sure they're in compliance? Obviously, like
Yeah.
we get audits all the time in our business. Will you be able to do you have the authority to go in and audit them to make sure they're in compliance?
we have the authority to audit employers under statute. We're not sure if we have, as statute stands now, the authority, the statutory oversight to audit this third party, the PFML group trust buying authority that they're calling themselves. That's why if we're going this direction, you know, there's larger considerations we need to think about. We should probably have an actuary study it before we make any decisions. But we would absolutely want proper oversight and regulatory structure like there is in workers' comp before we make any big decisions that might disrupt the state plan and the ability of the private sector fully insured market to operate effectively.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up on Representative Drinkwater's, and I'll get to you. Thank you so much for your patience. You have the authority to go in and audit employers.
Yeah.
So in theory, if these group trusts were to go forward, what would that look like for an individual employer in one of those trusts when they were audited? It seems scary to me that, you know, if there isn't that oversight, what's that going to look like for the individual employer?
I agree, it's scary. I would want full oversight over the third party.
Thank you. Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. So you said just a few minutes ago that the department was concerned with what employers would be paying for their in the pooling situation, that you're concerned that they would be removed from that pooling situation. Why does the state care? As long as they have a policy which meets the criteria under the statute, why does the state even care where they get it?
Well, we're saying they don't meet the criteria in the statute, but also we care because the state plan has I would say the ethical obligation to be the catch-all. We are also the insurer of last resort, even though that's not how we're the insurer of first resort. We're also the insurer of last resort, that all the people that got uncovered, you know, or lose coverage in the private sector, we're going to take them back in the state plan so that they're covered, so that if there's a disruption in coverage, we still provide coverage under the state plan. So we're taking financial losses for that. Absolutely, we are.
So it's about financial losses for the state. And the
It's
plan.
about keeping costs low for
So you're
everybody in the state
concerned-
plan, primarily the small businesses who are paying the majority if we go this direction.
So if you're concerned about losses, then you're concerned the plan's not going to be sufficient.
I would want them to be regulated so they're not going to implode.
Thank you. Additional questions? Senator.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned previously that once you came out with this ruling or notice that you sent to the employers or the groups that all but one chose to comply. And do you think they willingly complied, or was there something in that agreement that they had to sign that would maybe, for instance, I think I heard that they have to sign not to agree to change for 3 years.
That's in rules now, that if you elect for a private plan exemption, it lasts for 3 years. We don't want people hopping in and out of it.
So they'll be forced into a 3-year.
That's true of any private
Okay.
plan exemption now.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Drinkwater.
I'm sorry to keep beating this, but I need to understand. So you cannot audit a group trust if we continue with that. Has there been any discussion about things you would need to see if this was to move forward?
I think that's a discussion for you all. I mean, I think it's a larger programmatic decision of what you want your PFML program to be in the state. Do you want a larger private insurance market? Do you want an insurance mandate like New York? If you want a strong group trust that is keeping costs down for everybody in a state plan, you need to think about that. If you're going the direction of allowing an alternative risk pool like workers' compensation, I think you need to look at the funding of the state plan to make sure that it's adequately funded as the insurer of last resort. Because if you're pulling out all the highly insurable and the medium insurable people, and the only populations that are left behind in the state plan are high usage, low premium payers, your funding mechanism as it's structured right now in the statute is not going to be sufficient. You know, you need to adequately fund the state plan at that point as the insurer of last resort, as you do for workers' comp. You know, they have an insurer of last resort and the funding mechanism supports that. As it's structured now in statute, it is not gonna fund that.
Just for the work session, we're going to overload Steve. I would like to see what things would have to be done if this committee decides to go forward, that what would need to be done in order to make it applicable.
Representative Geiger? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Monahan, for being here. So what you're basically saying is we passed a bill, we designed a program, and now at the 11th hour, there is a sudden interest in a new way of funding, of employers funding themselves, which puts the entire structure of this PML program in danger, that it can't be sustainable with a large portion of medium-sized employers walking away. And what that leaves is a preponderance of people who are low income and are paying primarily it's businesses under 15 people, so that it is employees who end up funding this program. And that was not the intention.
That's exactly the concern.
And so what I hear you saying is you are inviting us not to tinker with what we don't understand with unintended consequences by pulling a thread on one side when the program's been designed in a certain way.
And I would at least study it and think about it methodically, and certainly not try to pull this off in the last 90 days of implementation. You know, our focus right now is laser focused on starting an effective state plan on May 1st and before. And also working with the insurers that exist now to effectively roll out the private market. We meet quarterly with the American Coalition of Life Insurers. We email with them weekly and daily. We are all hyper-focused on rolling out effective plans as of May 1st. We don't need a third thing thrown in the mix right now.
Thank you. Representative and then Senator?
Thank you, Representative. Has the department found any private plans that anyone has purchased thus far that don't meet the qualifications of the statute?
Yeah, I mean, our denial rate's extremely low. I can get you the number. And most people who are denied just end up resubmitting a better application. We approve them. Like I said, 1,850, I think, is our current approval rate. We've had total applications, I think 1,898. So that's 48 denials out of 1,900. And most of those reapplied with better applications or different plans and when they were approved. So they're all approved within 2 weeks, you know, maximum customer service time, 0 wait time on the phone. So it's pretty easy to be in compliance.
So they're all basically getting an appropriate plan.
Fully insured for the 95% are fully insured plans from insurance
So the
carriers.
complaint, from what I understand in this bill, is just basically on pooling a loan, someone that's found an easier, more cost-effective way to get that exact same plan that you're approving, but they're doing it cheaper by pooling it together. And
Without
that's a problem
regulation. They're
because-
not insurance carriers, and that's the difference. Insurance carriers have elaborate regulations and capitalization that is required. This is essentially an insurance carrier operating without the regulations.
Senator?
Thank you. I think I heard inferred a few minutes ago that this is a last minute proposal. And isn't it true that this is your department's first notified this probably almost a year ago about what's happening here, about what this groups plan to do?
I think it first came up as an issue around May. Like we had clarified with the consultants that reached out in March and we assumed everyone was in compliance. It first came up as a non-compliance issue in May, I believe.
So it's your assertion or assumption that if people were to drop out of the plan, it would be in a vein where the state plan would pick up more of the burden. Could it also be true that some of the higher costs or lower cost people would drop out?
I don't think it's likely. I would want to study it, but we've seen with our current private plan opt-out rate, it's almost exclusively 1%ers. It's the larger employers. It's high wage earners, which are actually good for a trust fund because their premium, they pay contributions up to the Social Security wage cap, but their benefit is capped at the average weekly wage. So high wage earners are actually better for the trust fund or a trust fund. And almost exclusively, we see that, the people opting out are large companies, 1% companies, high wage earners.
Oh. So currently we really have no study. To show
I would
what
certainly want to
happen.
study this issue before
Okay,
you
we
make a
have no
decision.
study or no, basically it's supposition based on experience. Is that right?
Well, and I think, it's a pretty straightforward thought experiment that if all of your 1%ers are going to go private market, the more that come out that are 1%, the proportion of 0.5% in the state plan increases. It's a straightforward kind of logical argument that I think would be easily verifiable on study.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. You said earlier that the reason that pooling wasn't going to be allowed was because it wasn't an authorized carrier. Is that the right term?
So to offer a fully insured
Mhm.
private plan in Maine, you have to be an insurance carrier licensed in your state with BOI.
And you're saying that they were looking at a carrier that wasn't licensed or insured in the state of Maine.
The TPA they're using is not an insurance carrier,
Are there any individuals that carry a policy with that same carrier?
not as an insurance carrier. You can designate a TPA to run the claims for you, but in terms of insurance policy, they're not issuing the policy, they're running the claims.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor? All right, seeing none, do we have any online? Oh, I'm sorry. We do have someone. Thank you.
I apologize.
All right. Good afternoon, Representative Rader, members of the committee. I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon. This is my first time with you this session. So my full introduction, I am here on behalf of the Maine Women's Lobby. For over 40 years, we have represented gender equity in the State House. And have always really enjoyed my work here with you and this committee. So happy to be back with you. We're here today in support of this proposal. As many of you know, we have worked actively on paid family and medical leave since our inception in 1978. And we were the leaders of the Maine Paid Family and Medical Leave Coalition and continue to be. That is an organization of nearly, or a coalition of nearly 50 organizations working on this issue, mostly representing workers and people who are in the workforce, as well as caregivers, parents, lactation consultants, you name it. If it is on the worker side, they are probably part of our coalition. We're here today really just to remind us and keep our focus on who this program serves, not only employers, but caregivers, parents, older Mainers, and workers of all types. We knew when we worked on this program initially that private plans and self-insured plans are a really important part of this proposal. We knew that we wanted to embed choice into this proposal. And we also knew that private plans and self-insured plans primarily benefit larger employers, as you've heard. Our public trust, our largest pool, is intended to support specifically small and mid-size employers and the less advantaged workers that they employ. We understand that employers are, like many people who are looking for this program, simply want an additional choice, but choice is already abundant in our plan, including, as you heard, 20 private plans. So there is a lot of choice and a lot of opportunity. Competing programs like the competing private trust that was proposed takes money out of the public pool for those small and mid-sized employees and employers that could destabilize the program on the whole. And that really has a harm to those small and mid-sized employers and the folks that they employ. It also creates, as you've heard, a less regulated system. For some employers, it is an opportunity for them to circumvent the regulation. I don't think that's most employers. I also want to acknowledge that we know that some employers will actively seek to circumvent the regulations. And finally, it really undermines the public trust in the program. The more we hear about lack of faith and lack of confidence in the program, the less beneficial it is going to be to those parents, caregivers, and older Mainers who are served by this life-changing plan. They will have access to it in 92 days. I hope that you will ensure that they have access to a stable plan that is fully vetted and regulated. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Representative Skoll?
Thank you so much for being here, for bringing your testimony. Could you, from your perspective, since the Maine Women's Lobby was part of, some of the stakeholders or was in creating the plan, did this come up in your memory or in your understanding? Did this kind of group private trust come up during that process?
Definitively, no. And I will say I ate and slept and breathed paid family and medical leave. It oozed out of my pores for a good 24 to 36 months. And there were absolutely like very careful intention to build a public trust, private plans, and self-insured trust plans. There was never any conversation of a competing group or of other private trusts. There were, however, conversations about ensuring that some of that trust covered administrative funds, as you heard about the 10% cap. And there were conversations too about ensuring that employers did have a lot of protection overall in the plan. As you mentioned, Representative Sobolewski, you're concerned that employers weren't protected, but in fact, Maine has a hardship exemption, which is the only one of its kind in the country. So employer protection was really baked in from the beginning. What we're hoping for is worker protection by ensuring that we don't have a lot of competing and unregulated and destabilizing programs.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have additional questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Additional folks who wish to testify in favor? Since I missed someone behind the poll before, and none online, is that correct? We'll begin testimony against. Welcome.
And I must apologize right up front. I'm a former member of the committee and I don't have snacks for you today. My fiscally conservative friend, Representative Drinkwater, offered me to pass out some stale cookies. But being of a high character, I would prefer to bring you some fresh baked goods at a later date. Thank you.
And while the senator is filling out a sheet at the podium, I neglected to mention that anyone who testifies, we're asking you to write your name and whether you're a proponent or an opponent. It is a sheet right on the podium. It will be available when you go up.
Good afternoon, Representative Roeder and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Senator Stacey Guerin, and I represent Senate District 4, which is Piscataquis County and part of Penobscot County. I am here today to testify in opposition to LD 2018, an act to amend the requirements of governing self-insurance plans in the Paid Family and Medical Leave Benefits Program. This bill would prohibit employers from pooling risk, financial resources, or administration where operating a self-insured private plan under Maine's Paid Family Medical Leave Program. It would apply the prohibition retroactively as of April 1st, 2025. I have serious concerns with both the policy and the precedents this bill would set. Pooling is a long-standing and responsible business practice, particularly for small and mid-sized employers. It allows businesses to spread and stabilize costs and access professional administration that would otherwise be out of reach for smaller companies. Prohibiting pooling will make self-insurance unattainable for many Maine employers and will sharply limit the private option that was intended to provide flexibility and innovation within this program. Having been on the committee for 6 years when we were just starting the discussion on paid family medical leave, I believe the first bill was brought by Representative Sarah Gideon, and then another bill by Representative Maddie Daughtry, and then another bill by Maddie later that came in. And it's my opinion that the reason that the self-insurance co-op models were not in the original bill is because the people back in that early beginning when I was on the committee were under the assumption that it would be allowed. And I think that's why it wasn't disallowed. It was assumed it would be allowed. We've pooling a long-standing and responsible business practice. Whoops, I've read that. We have already heard from Maine businesses like Treeline Incorporated, a family-owned company that has successfully used self-insurance and cooperative models for decades. They invested significant time, legal resources, and administrative effort to comply with the paid family medical leave law as written. Changing the rules now and applying them retroactively would punish employers who acted in good faith and relied on existing law and guidance. The retroactive nature of this bill is particularly troubling. Retroactive policy changes create uncertainty, undermine trust in government, and expose employers to unexpected costs and compliance risks after the fact. That approach is unfair and damaging, especially as this program is still being implemented. If there are legitimate concerns about financial protections or oversight, they should be addressed through clear standards, bonding requirements, audits, and enforcement, not by eliminating cooperative models that help Maine employers remain viable, competitive, and compliant. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the committee to vote ought not to pass on LD 2018. Thank you for your time and consideration. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you. When you were speaking of the work that was done on this in the past, in the 6 years that you were sort of privy to those conversations, do you mean the work specifically that was happening in committee, or were you part of an outside stakeholder group as well?
Committee.
Great. Thank you. Additional questions for the senator? Seeing none. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
And I will be back another day with some drinks.
Okay. Thank you. Folks that wish to testify in opposition, welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Representative Rader. and the members of Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Amanda Johnson. I'm here on behalf of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, representing more than 5,000 employers across the state. We are testifying in opposition of LD 2018. Maine's paid family medical leave is one of the most significant new labor laws in our state's history. While the Chamber opposed the legislation, there were important provisions included in the statute intentionally designed to give employers multiple lawful pathways to meet their PFML obligations. Under current law, employers may comply by participating in the state administrated plan, enrolling in state-approved, fully insured private plan, or implementing a self-insured private plan. For employers choosing the self-insured option, the statute imposes two clear and explicit requirements. The plan must provide rights, protections, and benefits that are substantially equivalent to those offered under the state plan, and the employer must furnish and maintain a surety bond to ensure its ability to pay benefits. Beyond those requirements, the statute imposes no additional conditions on self-insured private plans. Importantly, neither the original PFML statute nor the Department of Labor's implementing rules prohibit employers from working cooperatively to reduce administrative costs. Title 26, Chapter 7, subsection 850H already establishes bonding, reporting, and oversight requirements that protect employees and ensure financial accountability without restricting employer cooperation. LD 2018 would introduce a new limitation on self-insured plans. The issue before the committee is not employee protections or benefit payments. Employers utilizing self-insured plans are fully compliant with those obligations. The issue is administrative efficiency and cost effectiveness. Employers are not seeking to avoid responsibility, but rather to meet statutory requirements in a way that is accountable, efficient, and sustainable for both employers and employees. The Chamber has met with the Department of Labor and understands the department's operational concerns, including staffing constraints, administrative capacity, and the timing of the program's launch. While these concerns are understandable, they do not justify prohibiting employers from working cooperatively with existing statutory or regulatory safeguards. LD 2018 would penalize employers that have acted in good faith by following current laws and investing significant resources into compliant self-insured plans. It would layer new restrictions onto employers who relied on the statutory framework as written, creating uncertainty and risk, particularly given the bill's proposed retroactive application to April 1st, 2025. If enacted, LD 2018 would result in several unintended consequences. These include loss of flexible and cost-effective compliance options, particularly for small and mid-sized employers, increase administrative costs that ultimately affect both employers and employees, reduce predictability for long-term planning, and discouragement of innovation and effective plan design. Notably, these restrictions are not supported in the program's initial financial data. The department's December 25 actuary report projects a growing PFML fund.
Excuse me, you are at time, but if you could sum up the remainder of your
Okay.
testimony, that would be fantastic. And perhaps someone will ask you for clarification on the part you did
Okay.
not get to read yet.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. When employees can provide equal or better benefits at lower administrative costs while remaining fully compliant, public policy should encourage those outcomes rather than constrain them. Competition among compliance options promotes efficiency, accountability, and continuous improvement, all while preserving employee protection. For these reasons, the Maine State Chamber of Commerce urges the committee to oppose LD 2018 and preserve the availability of employers working cooperatively to reduce administrative costs. These arrangements are consistent with the statute, protective of employees, and critical of maintaining flexibility and stability for Maine employers. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I would be happy to try and answer any questions. And if I can't, there will be others coming behind me.
Thank you so much. I do have one quick question for you before I open it up to the rest of the committee. Your fourth paragraph down on the first part, the without restricting employer cooperation, that it's designed to protect employees. Hearing earlier that individual employers can get audited while the trust cannot, was that ever part of the discussion you were having with member businesses?
I will refer to them to answer that question when they can do that better than I
You're
can.
quite new, right? And I probably pop quiz and I just threw it on you. So
Yeah.
thank you. Do we have any additional questions? Yes, Representative Beck.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Johnson, for being here today. You mentioned concerns about LD 2018 resulting in unintended consequences. If there's significant growth in the use of private group trust, do you think that that might have unintended consequences for the financial stability of the PFML program?
I guess I'm kind of confused about the question. You're asking if the private plans will hurt the state plan?
If there are more and more private group trusts and it affects revenues for PFML, could that result in higher insurance rates for some of your, small business folks, or, perhaps a difficulty in paying out benefits to the insured?
So you're talking about if they're privately insured, is it going to be more costly to them?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm not being clear. If the department is asserting that an expansion of the private group trust model could affect the economic stability of the program, do you think that that could have unintended consequences on some of the small and medium business members in the chamber?
I do not have the answer right now. If somebody behind me cannot answer that, I will get you the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. We do appreciate that. And do we have additional questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. Hello.
Hi.
Director Monahan, before you testified that there was just one plan that was in question. Are you familiar with that plan and what's going on? And if they're not licensed in the state of Maine, do you know what's going on with that? Can you give us a little layman's terms on it?
You're talking about the self-insured group plan?
Right. That they're
I,
pulling right now, that there's the suit and all this. That's what this is all about.
correct.
So there's one. Can you give us the chamber's
I-
take on this?
I can refer you to the group that will be coming after me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, that was one employer that is not in compliance, correct? Not an insurance company that is not in compliance?
I do not have those
Okay.
specifics on
Yeah,
that.
we'll refer back to prior testimony to get on that.
Yeah.
Representative Collins, Representative Sobolewski.
Hi.
Hi.
The chamber represents, it says here, 5,000 employers. What's the average size of the companies that the chamber represents?
It's all sizes, from small to large, to, under 26 to hundreds of employees. So, yeah, all kinds.
Representative Sobolewski?
It wasn't so much a question, Representative. I believe he said that it was a company that wasn't allowed to do business in Maine, not a single employer that they were trying to pool with. That's what I understood. I'm gonna do that.
I know the kill switch is, it's hard. Yeah, I think we were possibly talking about two different things, that there was a policy versus an employer who had not come into compliance. We might be talking about two different things. We can talk to Stephen at the end for the work session, though. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Other folks in the room who wish to testify in opposition? Welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Representative Rader, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Peter Gore. I'm with the firm of Main Street Solutions, and I'm here to speak today in opposition to LD 2018 on behalf of our client, the Manufacturers Association of Maine. The Manufacturers Association of Maine is a nonprofit 501c6 grounded in service to its membership, providing a network of resources designed to support the strategic business growth of Maine's manufacturing entrepreneurs. I'm going to leave the rest of my description and go right to the heart of the matter, why we're here today. Like a number of you who are here on this committee, I was also present in 2023 when the discussion around the implementation of paid family medical leave took place. And as part of the business group that negotiated or attempted to negotiate what the language would look like and the law would look like at the end. I can tell you the issue of whether small businesses should be allowed to pool for self-insurance purposes for PFMO was never discussed. It wasn't discussed in the committee. As many of you will remember, it was not discussed with the advocates. It was not discussed, quite frankly, even amongst the business community at the time. So what I would say is, while the department has taken the position that it should not be allowed, we would take the position, because it wasn't discussed, that there's nothing to prevent it. And in fact, I don't think we would be here now with the DOL looking to take away the option were it not already allowable. What was discussed in 2003 was affordability for individuals and for small businesses. This was discussed in this committee. It was discussed with the administration, advocates, business reps, and the department. This bill takes away an option for small businesses that would perhaps make paid family medical leave more affordable to them and less expensive. And it does this without impacting two things that this committee has felt was extremely important: benefits and duration of benefits. And lastly, I'm going to call this policy equity. Last session, the business community came forward with at least a dozen bills that they believed would make paid family medical leave more operationally efficient and manageable for their businesses. Despite the requests for these changes, the legislature, the administration, and the Department of Labor opposed these, all of them. They did so because they believed that the program should continue as it was and be allowed to move forward without significant policy changes. That the legislature needed to see how the law and the program functioned before making any changes. How is this bill before us today any different, given the breadth of the policy change the Department of Labor is requesting? The fact is, there is no reason to make this change. The better option instead is to allow rulemaking if this committee thinks it is pertinent to govern these small business pooling options, rather than make small businesses lock them into a tract which other businesses are not bound to. For these reasons, we urge you to reject LD 2018, and I would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Mr. Gore, I remember several sessions ago, it was probably only a couple, we were talking about a bill on a completely different subject, and you mentioned being here when workman's comp sort of blew up. Do you recall during that time, were you part of the discussion when the language was put into statute allowing this, as the director spoke about, that sort of parity? The discussion about writing in the pools rather than?
So thankfully, no. But ever since that time, workers' comp has been part of my portfolio before the legislature. So self-insurance has been allowed for a long time. But I do take some exception to the department's comparing workers' compensation self-insurance with the possibility of pooling self-insurance in this area. They're not at all alike. Could I give some examples? May I expound? So, for example, a workers' comp claim can have a tail of 40 or 50 years. It also can have benefits for the injured worker that vary in the year and allow the injured worker, based on their incapacity and their physical capacity and their work capacity, to come in and out of the system all the time. So it is very complex. What you're talking about here is 12 weeks of leave, a defined benefit period with a defined duration with a defined benefit period. It's not that complex. And if the department really wanted to make this more workable, they could conduct rulemaking with stakeholders in probably a couple of pages and deal with this issue and still leave this as an option for small businesses.
Thank you. And it was my understanding, it was just the presence of the language in the workman's comp statute that they were comparing not the benefits themselves, but that's a
No, it's
question I can
true,
ask.
but they're just two different systems. And they do two different things for two different reasons. So there's a requirement, there are plenty of requirements under that because whoever self-insures needs to be in a position to meet long-term benefit payouts over time, as many as I said, 40 or 50 years.
All right, additional questions? Representative Geiger, Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gore, for
You're
being
welcome.
here. So I met with a medium business who expressed concerns about not being able to do this. But they talked at length about an assumption that they would be able to do it because it's what they did in workman's comp. And they saw them as alike and offering that same possibility. And so they were surprised that it wasn't allowed. But what, in fact, you're sort of making the department's argument, which is they're really two different things. And the assumption that because they were able to pool in workman's comp should not necessarily follow that that would be allowed in a completely different program.
I guess I would disagree with you a little bit. I think when people throw around the term self-insurance, there is a difference between programmatically what is represented in workers' compensation and programmatically what is represented in main paid family medical leave law. For very specific purposes, they are different in terms of the requirement that is, the regulation that is required to ensure that, you know, whatever the business is signing on to is met. There is no reason why you cannot come up with a similar requirements, far less complex, that still allow both to do the self-insurance term, if you will, for paid family medical leave. I think they are very much synergetic. I just think it's a question of how you want to regulate them, which this committee and the department are fully capable of implementing.
Follow-up question, Madam Chair. So that sounds like we don't have that in place now. How do you respond to the department's concern that the groups that are pooling don't have anything to back it up? So that if they fail or one of them backs out, it leaves the department on the hook. That unlike those major self-insured programs, they don't have the assets and they don't have an insurer behind them to cover them when things fail.
So I think there'll be some folks that are going to come behind me that are more educated around what it is the small businesses exactly want to do. But I by no means think that they're not envisioning, these small businesses are not envisioning pooling for surety bonds that would make sure that they could meet their obligations under the law. So they're not going into this, you know, without resources in order to provide the leave. I think there will be resources. And I think that the department could certainly, if they wanted to, just like the Bureau of Insurance does, just like the Bureau of Insurance requires self-insured employers for workers' comp purposes, could require these small businesses to have the proper amount of bonding to make sure they meet their obligations into the future.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. Having had to have a bond in our automobile business, you just don't get a bond by filling out a quick application. You have to show a lot of personal finance information. Would you agree that a small business, in order to buy a surety bond for this paid family medical leave, would have many hurdles they would have to overcome in order to secure that bond, such as personal financial statements, cash on hand? Would you expand on that a little bit?
I think I understand your question, Representative Drinkwater, but I want to try and rephrase it if possible so I don't miss it. So I think what you're asking is, on their own, could a small business do this? I think it would be challenging, which is why they're not. I think that's part of the reason we're here this morning. Could small businesses together purchase the necessary bonding to, as a group, then go out and purchase a plan for paid family medical leave that met all the requirements under Maine law? I mean, I think that's why we're here, and that's what the department is trying to prevent.
If I may follow up. I got the impression from the director that he's concerned that the fund would be in danger if too many employers have a private plan.
I heard that.
Care to comment?
Well, again, I think there'll be some folks that are going to come behind me that can talk about that a little further. But I mean, I believe the department's own recent actuarial report shows that by 2035, there's more than $400 million available for to meet obligations under the fund. Do they really believe that that many small businesses will form enough of a nucleus to pull that much money away from that $400+ million expected? And that's above, I believe that's above and beyond meeting obligations to the fund. Well, that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make programmatic sense.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. Peter, when Director Monahan was up speaking, I heard him say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the concern of the department is the TPCs, the third-party carriers, that they're not, that in this case, they weren't authorized to do business in the state of Maine. And that's why that suit was brought forward. Not that they were trying to pool together. Are you familiar with what that suit's all about? And could you kind of chalkboard that for us?
I like answering questions as much as anybody.
I
But
know you do.
I cannot answer that question, but I will guarantee you there's someone smart enough in this room to be able to do it. It's just not me.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions? Senator, did you?
Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Anyone who would like to testify in opposition?
Should I wait till she hands that out or? Chairman Rader, members of the committee. My name is Joe Edwards. I'm the person you want to talk to. I'm probably not going to duck the answers. I was the insurance superintendent for the comp reform. 39A is the comp statute. It's recognized and has been recognized in a number of states as the gold standard for self-insurance regulation, and it is. Monthly bank statements, quarterly financials, actuarial reviews twice a year, audited financials, and cash funding to the 65th confidence level. All of those things are, the combination of those things are almost unique to Maine. They make it the best regulatory scheme for self-insurance in the country, and I'm pleased to say I wrote it. So if you want questions about self-insurance, I can answer them. I've also been the fund administrator for Workers' Compensation Trust since 1991. I've handed out testimony. I'll ask you to read it. I think my time and your time would be best spent if I cleared up a number of complex, but I think misleading situations that have sort of been described this morning. And I think the first is to make a clear distinction, as clear as possible, in the difference between workers' compensation and the regulation of it and paid family medical leave. And start with a comp example, and Peter alluded to it. And I'll take an extreme example to give you the best idea. But say a 20-year-old worker is seriously injured, never work again. So that person could be on benefits for 60 years. Those benefits are a lifeline. That person has got to be supported by those benefits. That could be his or her only income. Children, spouse, everything's dependent on it. And those benefits have to be paid, arguably routinely, monthly, weekly, for 60 years. That requires money on hand. You can't mess with that. That has to be cash funded in advance. And those funds have to be available, they have to be adequate, and they have to be managed. All of that provides a tremendous opportunity for abuse. All of that requires very, very rigid regulation, extensive regulation. That's the reference to hundreds of pages. The Department of Labor, I think, is confusing what this is about with that issue, and that's unfortunate. Let me go back now and talk about what actually happened in paid family medical leave. A lot of the employers that self-insure comp thought they might also like to self-insure paid family medical leave. And the way that that's always been done in comp is with a group trust. So those trust documents were drafted, and that was the initial intention. As we got down the road on that, we eventually made that known to the department. We looked at the statute. The statute didn't preclude it. Generally in American law, if it's not prohibited, it's permitted. You know, you can't just prohibit stuff and make it up or say, well, it's not the law, so you can't do it.
Sir, you are at time. However, I have a question for you. What other questions have we asked before that you would like to share your expertise on?
Well, okay, thank you. So we started with the idea of a trust. We went to the department, they said trusts are not permitted. So in fact, the trust was abandoned, but the documents were still floating around, and one of them got in the hands of the department, and they believed that we actually have a trust structure. We don't. When they said we can't have a group trust, which is, and by the way, what makes it a group trust is that employers get together and create a fund, a pool of money, and the risk of payment transfers from the individual employer to the group. So 20 employers in the construction trust pay into a fund. That fund holds $3 million to pay claims. That fund has to be regulated, and the Bureau of Insurance does it very well under the law that I substantially drafted. That requires heavy-handed and extensive regulation. The money has to be there. There's a transfer of risk. DOL said we could not do that, so we didn't. Every one of the employers applied and was approved individually. Every single one. So they're individually self-insured by definition. They're not a group. They're not a trust. At law, I mean, no matter, you can do things that look like trust work, but not be a trust. You can do things that look like group activity and not be a group. No matter how many, it has 4 legs, 2 eyes, and a tail, but a cow is not a horse. And you can't turn a cow into a horse by activity or anything else. What we are individual self-insureds. That's a legal fact. What happened next was an interesting example of how things can be miscommunicated and misunderstood. We're seeing the same thing seen from 2 different perspectives, getting a very different result. I got the idea that there are 2 requirements in the statute for individual self-insurance: DOL approval and a surety bond. That's it. That's the law. That's what's in the statute. That's main law. 2 requirements, no more. So everybody needed a surety bond. And being a longtime insurance person and a former insurance superintendent, I know that business. And I said, well, maybe somebody would be interested in offering us a discount if all the bonds were bought from one carrier. So I went to a cross broker. The broker went to Arch Insurance and said, hey, we've got 50 companies that need surety bonds. Would you give us a discount if they all happen to buy it from you? And they said, yes, that's a program we'll make available. So eventually DOL found out about that and said, you cannot do that. Now that's where we drew the line. And our reaction to that, the reaction by the members was visceral. The only real requirements in this program are get approved, pay the benefits, and provide the bond. And as long as the benefits are paid, it's DOL keeps alleging that there's a lot of regulation late in the program, bring this in fresh, and there's all this additional regulation. There is not. There's no tail on this coverage. All you have to do, this is no different than vacation pay or sick pay. The employers are going to pay the benefits. They're going to get paid by their employer. In fact, it's probably going to be, almost a routine check payment like they normally get in payroll. So that really was all that was needed. With that, there is no real need for the regulation. Trying to remember, where was I with this?
I do believe there are a lot of folks with questions. I will start with Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you very much, Representative. Thank you for being here, sir. Some answers is what we're looking for. The retroactive part of this policy. any business or person that's already paid into this and they've got a policy going and it's taken away from them and they have to go retroactive back to April of 25, does that open the state up to a lawsuit?
I wouldn't think so.
They can just do that? You got to
Well,
pay us?
I mean, there's a question of whether or not ex post facto laws are valid. And I think the statute, that might get challenged, but, you know, the state probably has the authority to do that, I think. I think it's an admission that what DOL's been doing is illegal and an attempt after the fact to try to justify it and also perhaps influence the litigation. But I don't know I don't know how a court case would turn out on that.
Would that be legal as it stands now or legal as if this bill was passed, which allows it?
Well, passing the bill would, I mean, it's not an issue until the bill passes in terms of retroactivity.
Mhm.
The retroactivity provision is in the bill.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Edwards. I think you mentioned before that basically the concerns about the funding not being there for the recipients is really not a real issue because of the protections built in. Would you comment on the assertion that the fund itself may be in jeopardy if this were to go?
Well, yes. And by the way, before I do that, I'd like to go back and finish because I reconnected with myself. What happened, so with the surety bond, when DOL said we couldn't do it, the reaction was visceral. Everybody objected. They thought it was an overreach. They thought there's nothing in the statute that prohibits getting a discount on a surety bond. That's not in the law anywhere. It's not prohibited. DOL made it up because of its conception of what the law is supposed to do, which also isn't in the law, and they made up. So the membership reacted very negatively to that and dug in their heels and said, that's not fair and it's not right. And there's a matter of principle here. We should not contest this. We should contest this. We should not accept it. What actually happened, though, was that we don't control Arch's pricing or their products. What actually happened, in fact, was the carrier set a price and offered a product which each one of our members individually accepted, which is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't know how DOL would challenge that or on what basis, but the fact is we have individual companies that individually accepted an offer from a carrier. And so this is not a group. It's not a trust. It's not acting in concert in any way along those lines. It benefited from a product offer from a carrier. The same thing will apply with Cross TPA. Cross is the TPA. It can set any price it wants. If it happens to think that 50 of us are all going to sign up, and we do individually, and it's all individual contracts, then that's what it is. To your question, Senator. So, and the point of that is DOL looked at it. We're both looking at the same facts pattern, sort of, except DOL thought there was some kind of group collusion, which I don't think is relevant particularly, but DOL did, when in fact it was a product offer from a carrier and 50 acceptances. In terms of the threat to the trust, to the state, nobody knows. I mean, it's that there might be a problem. It's certainly theoretically conceivable, but it's totally speculative. And if you look at the numbers, as of December 31st, and these are from the actuarial study, MDOL had 190, had revenue in 20, they're going to have revenue this year of 195 million and expenses of 118 million. So they're going to make 77 million. They already have 209 million. Profit, clear, surplus. That means by the end of this year, they're going to have $286 million excess of all expenses. That's going to grow to 429 million. They've got 45,692 small employers, 14 or under. 45,692. We have 5. They've got 6,088 employers over 15 or more. We've got 47. the scale of this isn't an elephant and a mouse, it's an elephant and an amoeba. I mean, it's inconsequential, but more importantly, the companies that self-insured are not in the study. The group that we have cannot impact the state fund by itself. It's already excluded and accounted for. What the only threat is if this model grows, and there's no evidence that it will. I mean, it's possible that it could. If it's a better mousetrap, people may come to it, but there's no evidence. I mean, everybody's now covered. Most of the carriers have got their members. The employers we've talked to in marketing this, we've talked to a lot of them, and the ones that are with insurance companies want to be. They don't want the risk. They want to just write a check, have the insurance company take care of it and forget about it. They're not going to leave the carriers. And we did a survey of our self-insured members. 77 responded. 8 are in the state fund. So of the market that we have, only 8 could possibly leave the state fund and come to us. There are 30 some or 40 some that are insured that might want to switch. I mean, that's likely from a private carrier to the private self-insured arrangement, but the ones that are already out are not going to go back, and the ones that are already out can't leave because they're already out. And there are only 8 out of 77. So the threat is very, very small, bordering on inconsequential, and only theoretical. And the other thing, the simple thing is, if something happens down the road, you can fix it. There's nothing stopping you from revisiting this if the group of companies that are individually self-insured but working together somehow ends up presenting a threat, or if it grows too dramatically. There's no reason you can't come back.
Just very quickly, it sounds to me like you're saying that there's no difference between an individual self-insured company that's doing it on their own and the group of individual self-insured companies that are working together. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, the difference is there is some commonality in response to various options and opportunities, but there is nothing that is, there's no group trust in the conventional sense, and there's no fund of money that has to be dealt with. I mean, there's a back and forth. The plan calls for members to pay premium to cross, to level out their payments. They're going to pay the benefits. The employers are still going to pay the benefits directly. So the real concern here are the benefit payments. DOL's got a legitimate concern in making sure the benefits get paid. And to that extent, they ought to be able to audit the employers to make sure the benefits are getting paid. But that's it. If the benefits are getting paid and the surety bond stays in place as the backstop, the financial backstop, that's all you need in this mechanism. This isn't a long tail investment horizon monthly payment thing. You go out for a week, you get paid that week. The money's in and out, and it's all going to be paid by the employers. So from DOL's perspective, there's no difference between BIW doing this alone and Robbins Lumber and Cedar Works working together to get a surety bond, go to a common surety bond buyer, go to a common TPA. There's really all of the concerns that they've got around that are misunderstandings and inappropriate.
Would you just very quickly, you mentioned that the employers would be the one auditing, and what I believe we heard, or getting audited, sorry. And what I believe we heard from the director was that in a traditional arrangement, it would be the providers being audited rather than the employer. Is that correct? As far as you are?
Well, in the comp group or the carrier? I mean, what's the
carrier? Sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bureau of Insurance licensed carriers. I mean, the other thing here is that whenever you deal with self-insurance, this should have been regulated by the Bureau of Insurance, or should. I mean, if you're going to fix something, that's what to fix, because that's where the knowledge is, and they would bring whatever the appropriate regulation is here. They understand it, they know the differences, and I mean, they would be able to provide whatever regulation is necessary. But I'm telling you, as a former insurance superintendent and a longtime insurance person, PFML only requires making sure the benefits get paid with a surety bond backup. That's all you need. There's nothing else required. And DOL doesn't have to do a single thing. And there's no reason to edit, audit, or monitor the TPA. It doesn't matter.
I believe Representative Drinkwater, do you still have a question?
I'll defer.
All right. Any additional questions? Yes, Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir, for being here today and being able to explain some of the minutia of this. So one question I want to ask you, there seems to be a lot of supposition in here and some recommendations that things do need to be fixed, but you don't like this fix. You'd prefer a different fix. But my question to you is, unlike workman's comp, which probably has an ability to guess how many people will be injured given a certain number of employees, and that you have some control over that by making your workplace safer, every employee in the workplace can take family medical leave.
Amen.
And so there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of question. We know what the rate of uptake is in other states, but we don't really know what it's going to be here. So I'm a little concerned that you say, we don't need to worry about that. You know, they've got their 3 million, they're going to be paying the claims. You don't have to think about it. When in fact, unlike workman's comp, all of their employees are eligible. Depending on how many take it any given year, there will be more uptake than they expect. And there isn't anybody looking to make sure that what's in that fund and that they are solvent enough to pay that if more come than expected.
Well, yes, that's true. And so a couple of things. I mean, companies, no one knows what's going to happen here. And DOL correctly said that if there's a run on DOL's membership of large companies, that could undercut the subsidy. If they're large companies with bad loss, with good loss records. If there are large companies with poor experience who decide to go self-insurance, that'll help the fund. If small companies leave, interestingly, that will help the fund because they're being subsidized. If smaller companies left, that would be a good thing. And the way to get small companies to leave is pooling. But what you're talking about here is, you know, really, you're saying that there's a risk that benefit utilization will be so high that a company's bankrupted. And that's certainly possible. I mean, that could happen. And going self-insured presents that risk. But that's a company choice. And companies are free to make that choice. My members are all, I mean, it's Robbins Lumber, Cedar Works, I mean, Sheridan, Auburn Manufacturing. These are quality Maine companies. They're not going to go bankrupt from this. They're making a choice. The other thing is they should be, I think they're free and they should be to buy reinsurance. And again, the collection of these companies may say for exactly that reason, gee, we're worried that this might be way worse than anybody thinks. Let's go to a reinsurance company. And again, if the reinsurance company offered a discount for all of them buying reinsurance, why not? I mean, that's really what this is. This is about minimizing the expense and keeping money in these companies to pay wages, benefits, bonuses, and keep employees employed and still pay the benefits. Nothing about this has to do with the benefits. The benefits are getting paid. This is administration only. And DOL has ginned up, misunderstands the self-insurance, misunderstands the regulatory need, and has ginned up a scenario which is a possible scenario, but for which there's no evidence at this point of something that could happen that's really bad. Long before this gets very bad, with $250 million of cushion, action can be taken to mitigate it, if it even happens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, sir. So you said this should be their choice, but the department has pointed out that they are the
Market of last resort.
right. And you're saying, you know, they could reinsure, but there's nothing requiring them to reinsure, which again means that the department is the place
Market
of
of
last
last
resort.
resort.
Does that concern you?
Well, again, I know my members, so no. I mean, they're not companies that are going to do that. But again, if that happens, we're talking about 47 companies. The fund has over 51,000. 6,000 big ones, 45,692 small ones. We've got 47. And they're all quality Maine companies. These are grade A, mostly family-owned, quality, well-heeled Maine companies. If a couple of them start to go under, what the fund should encourage is joint and several liability. We tried to suggest that. That's what's available in the comp system. If you have joint and several liability for the losses, that means the collection of employers are all responsible for those claims. That's the real answer to your concern. Let these companies have joint and several liability. Any one of them fails to pay, the other, we now have 52, the other 51 would have to pay. Never get to the state fund. Never be a problem. That's what they would like to do, because if you have joint and several liability, you don't need the surety bond. And the surety bond, just so everybody knows, is money given to an out-of-state insurance company. And on our members, it'll never be used. It's a complete waste. Statute requires it. No one's complaining. But it's just, you might as well burn the money. And it could be going to investment in the business, wages, benefits, bonuses. Instead, we're shipping it to a surety.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Edwards, for being here. Let's talk about private plans and how the state can be confident that they have the funds to pay. Are they required to set up a separate account and have money in that account? Unlike the state plan, we know there's a fund and we know what the balance is. What is required of the private plans?
The employer is liable. So the employer files with DOL. DOL makes the determination that it's appropriate for them to self-insure. First of all, you have to have DOL approval. And that is an indication that the money is there. I mean, remember, what we're talking about here is salary. What happens when this happens, somebody's working and then they don't work. So the money's there. The salary's getting paid. What's hit is the production. You lose the productivity of the worker while they're out, but there's no real financial issue. I mean, if you have enough absences, then maybe your productivity drops and your revenue drops because you can't meet production goals or your customers don't get satisfied and they leave. But that's the management has to deal with that. This isn't really a financial issue directly, the way, especially if it's individual self-insured, the way this is set up, because the money's just the same payroll. In fact, it's probably a little less in a lot of cases, but the production is the hit.
So when they look at a private company, just to qualify them, they look at their financial situation, I'm assuming.
You would ask that question to the director.
Yeah, well, it's too late for that. But during the work session, we can ask.
He's
him.
still here. I bet he'd be happy to let you know, but.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition?
Good afternoon, Representative Rauter and members of the committee. My name is Scott Welch, and I am speaking on behalf today of Treeline Incorporated, Maine-based family-owned logging, trucking, manufacturing, property management, and retail sales company that has operated in this state for 40 years. I'm here to testify in opposition of LD 2018. Treeline has a history of success based upon sound business decisions and diversification. Starting in the logging industry, we have branched out into a number of diversified business ventures that are demonstrative of our resilience as a small business. Starting with one employee, a chainsaw, and a horse, to now employing 95 employees. We have done so by operating our business in an efficient and responsible manner, maintaining costs and paying good wages and benefits to our employees. We too have a long successful history of self-insurance. We are self-insured for medical benefits and are a member of the Forest Products Group Collaborative for our workers' compensation coverage. This model has allowed us to responsibly manage costs, maintain compliance, and tailor benefits to the needs of our workforce and while remaining financially stable and competitive in Maine. When Maine enacted the paid family and medical leave law, Treeline also made a good faith decision to comply through the self-insurance route. That process was neither quick nor easy. We invested significant amounts of time, legal resources, and administrative effort to meet every requirement set by the Department of Labor. We too secured our bond, filed all required documentation, and built internal systems to ensure compliance with the law as written. Maine Department of Labor's order to unwind the trust created uncertainty and unnecessary expense for Treeline. It put an undue burden on our administrative team and caused confusion with our workforce. Ironically, our tax dollars are still being used in ways to harm our business and employees' wages and benefits. In effect, the MDOL made up a legal requirement and used tax dollars to force Mainers to spend an enormous amount of time and money in an effort just to be treated fairly, which now would be codified by LD 2018. This is certainly not in the spirit of supporting small business in Maine and making Maine a more attractive place to do business. There's no rational basis for prohibiting employers for utilizing a cooperative to meet paid family medical leave requirements. On the contrary, group administration uses costs, promotes compliance, and ensures sustainability. A private sector alternative would allow Mainers to choose the most cost-effective method of legal compliance. LD 2018 would negate these efforts by increasing costs and creating uncertainty for employers who have acted responsibly and in good faith. For these reasons, Treeline Incorporated respectfully urges the committee to oppose LD 2018. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Senator.
Yes, thank you for being here, Mr. Welch.
Thank you.
So your only motivation in joining this entity or effort was to reduce costs.
Correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition?
Good afternoon, Senator Representative Rader and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Robbins Halstead, and I'm speaking on behalf of Robbins Lumber Incorporated, a Maine-based manufacturing company that has operated in this state for generations. I am here to testify in opposition to LD 2018. Robbins Lumber has a long and successful history of self-insurance. We have been self-insured for both medical benefits and workers' compensation for more than 20 years. This model has allowed us to responsibly manage costs, maintain compliance, and tailor benefits to the needs of our workforce while remaining financially stable and competitive in Maine. When Maine enacted the paid family and medical leave law, Robbins Lumber made a good faith decision to comply through the self-insurance route. That process was neither quick nor easy. We invested significant time, legal resources, and administrative effort to meet every requirement set by the Department of Labor. We secured our bond, filed all required documentation, and built internal systems to ensure compliance with the law as written. LD 2018 undermines that effort. This bill appears to penalize employers who followed the rules and invested in compliance by introducing additional restrictions on self-insurance and employer cooperation. It sends a troubling message that even when employers fully comply with state requirements, the rules can change after the fact in ways that discourage responsible, lawful alternatives to a state-run program. Self-insurance is not a loophole. It is a proven, regulated, and effective approach that many Maine employers have relied on for decades. Employers who choose self-insurance are not trying to avoid obligations to employees. We are choosing to meet those obligations in a way that is efficient, accountable, and cost-effective. This bill represents unnecessary government overreach. It appears driven not by failures in self-insurance, but by concern that employers may prefer managing benefits themselves rather than using the state platform. If employers can provide equal or better benefits at lower costs while remaining compliant, that should be encouraged, not restricted. Maine should be fostering cooperation and flexibility between employers and the state, not limiting lawful options that have worked well for both employers and employees. LD 2018 risks discouraging innovation, increasing costs, and creating uncertainty for employers who have acted responsibly and in good faith. For these reasons, Robbins Lumber respectfully urges the committee to oppose LD 2018. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think I also maybe didn't state my name in the beginning. Nope, I did. A little
You did,
nervous.
we remember. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Collins.
Thanks. Thank you for being here. By saving funds with the surety and bonding together with the other people in the group, does that allow you the opportunity to expand your mills or to update equipment?
Absolutely.
Or to pay additional wages for your employees?
Absolutely. We have 150 employees in Searsmont and 50 in East Baldwin. Any wages, any extra money that we have, we always reinvest it into our company, and we give profit sharing bonuses at the end of the year. We distribute profits directly to the employees based on their years of service that they've done and a portion of the salary that they earned. And that is directly impacted when we have to have extra costs. So anytime we can save costs through administration, that absolutely puts money back into our employees' pockets, 100%.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional
you.
folks who wish to testify in opposition?
All right, good afternoon. Representative Roder, respective members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Brad Stout. I reside in Yarmouth, Maine. I am a husband as well as a father to 3 teenage boys, which I always like to point out before I testify. So I'm also the president and CEO of the Coots Companies, Maine-based employee-owned business with 130 team members servicing Maine and New England. I am going to do what they told me not to do and just kind of go off the cuff here, since you've already heard nearly everything I wrote. But I did want to address a couple things that are, I hope you're not misled by a few of the proponents. I heard a couple things that I just have to address. Talking about how you're going to lose all the 1%ers, and we're not all 1%ers that you're going to lose, just so you do know. And if you were really worried about losing 1%ers while you spent 2 or 3 years talking about this bill, you wouldn't have left self-insurance open as an option, because that's what all of our biggest employers are doing. All the wealthiest people are already left. Just putting it out there. The other thing you should know is that in 3 or 4 years, when we all have a history and a record, and you can see how many of our people took advantage of this benefit, the Mutual of Omaha's and all the other insurance carriers are going to be able to look at that and provide us much better pricing than those people that overused. And we truly are going to be a last resort policy. That's what the state fund's going to be. And that's going to happen in a couple of years, regardless of what you do here. So it's frustrating for me, who works all day, to see that this is what we spend like 2 hours just sitting here talking about nothing that's going to matter 3 to 5 years from now. But that's all right. This is what we do. All right. And then just the last thing I have to address is the idea that we're trying to do this to avoid regulation or avoid paying our people. That couldn't be further from the truth. We're trying to find a better mousetrap to make sure we always can pay our people what we pay them now, as well as these benefits that are imposed on us. Okay. We've always had, since I've been at Coots, we've always had short-term disability. Sounds very similar to PFML, right? With 60% pay for 12 weeks, a policy like that to make sure our people, if something happens, we want them taken care of. We want their families to do well. We have 130 people that we all care about, and it's important to us that these people have these benefits and it continues to get paid. And the best way for us to do that is to find the best way to administer the program. So the last thing I'll mention is pool programs are all across business. We pull our programs for workers' comp like most people here, but we also belong to captives for our health insurance, as well as our general liability and automotive insurances. And that gives us the opportunity to meet with people all over the country and share best demonstrated practices to make sure that our workplace is the safest and our benefits are better than everyone else's. Our people are getting the highest level of care because we're all talking together and working together on doing that. So I'll leave you with, thank you for your time and consideration, and I urge you to oppose the bill.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. I find it curious. You have, the state trusts you for all these self-insured pooled programs. But when it comes to a surety bond for paid family medical leave, that's where the state draws the line. Would you like to comment on that?
I think Joe said it best when we agree this is a bit of an overreach. There's some other people in the room that we do business with that we've worked with for a long time. And I think they can assure you there's nothing more important to me that my people are taken care of.
That's right.
And that's really what this comes down to. And that's what we want as employers, to make sure this is executed correctly so our people have what they need.
Thank you. Additional questions? Seeing none, you look remarkably well rested for a father of teens.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to testify in opposition? Thank you.
Representative Rader and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor, my name is Megan Diver, and I'm the Vice President of the Maine Energy Marketers Association. The Maine Energy Marketers Association represents energy marketers across the state of Maine who deliver essential fuels, including propane, heating oil, biofuels, and motor fuels, to more than 400 households and businesses. I too will not read all of my testimony because you've heard a lot of it and you'll probably hear a lot more of it this afternoon by the looks of the room. So I'll just read a small portion of my testimony. The PFML law is silent with respect to groups, trusts, cooperatives, or other forms of collective employer action. There is no language in the statute that bars employers from pooling resources or organizing collectively to meet self-insurance requirements. MEMA relied on the language of the law and the Department of Labor's application process when deciding how to comply. All participating employers individually qualified for self-insurance. Each met the statutory requirements submitted by the required letters of attestation and received approval from the Maine Department of Labor. These approvals demonstrate that the employers were otherwise fully compliant and eligible. Changing the rules after the facts undermines regulatory certainty and discourages employers from investing in lawful compliance efforts in the future. I'll wrap up by saying that we urge the committee to oppose LD 2018. The bill retroactively changes the rules, penalizes employers who followed the law, increases costs for the Maine businesses and workers, and undermines confidence in state approvals. Maine's PFML law program should allow flexibility, innovation, and lawful private sector participation, not restrict it. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I would be happy to answer any questions or ask Joe. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Do we have do we have questions? Yes, Representative Collin.
I know you represent a lot of different oil companies. Do they all charge the same price for oil?
We actually, by antitrust laws, are not able to discuss prices.
Okay, so competition is a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition? And if I may, just to get a feel for the room, if you're still waiting to testify in opposition or neither for nor against, may I see hands? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Wilds, and I'm here representing Kodiak Steel. We're a small company located in Clinton, Maine. I'm actually here. Kodiak Steel is actually part of the state program. We're not part of any group trust. But we do object to LD 2018 because it will limit our company's ability to efficiently manage the expenses related to the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. Like most small businesses, you've heard, every penny counts, and being prohibited to make efficient business decisions in the future while providing a much needed employee benefit will damage our business. LD 2018 will reduce our bottom line and directly reduce our pool of money that is used to reward each employee through our yearly bonus plan. Since the Paid Family Medical Leave Act was enacted, there have been numerous attempts to change, alter, or tweak the program. None of these changes were accepted because the intent was to let the program perform as it was written. LD 2018 should not be an exception to that direction. Prohibiting a buying group has no rational purpose with respect to providing PFMLA benefits. Maine Department of Labor's attempt to change the law now to legitimize its unlawful actions is alarming and undermines the confidence in the PMFLA. For that reason, I urge you to oppose it. Any questions?
Thank you so much. I do have a question for you. You said you're part of the state plan, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so in the second paragraph here, are you outlining a hypothetical future issue should you decide to switch to?
Right, we're not confident in what it will look like in 3 years, so we'd like that option.
Okay.
In 3 years, if the cost goes up in the state program, to have a competitive option.
So, but not current, this is a future scenario that
Correct.
you're laying out.
We're under 15 employees,
Okay,
so we're subsidized, so it's cheaper with the state program now.
great. And do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. Mr. Wiles, as you said, you were with the state plan. Have you looked into pooling and seen what the difference in cost would be?
Not for Kodiak Steel, no, we have not.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition?
And this. Just go for it. We'll see what happens. So, good afternoon, Representative Rader and members of the committee. My name is Diane Johansson. I am a contract lobbyist with Pretty Flaherty. I'm here today on behalf of Krista West, who is the Executive Director of the Maine Forest Products Council, to provide testimony in opposition to the bill before you. For 65 years, the Maine Forest Products Council has served as the voice of Maine's forest economy, representing hundreds of members from all facets of the forest products industry. Our members include pulp and paper mills, sawmills, secondary wood processors, foresters, loggers, and truckers. We also represent commercial landowners sustainably managing more than 8 million acres of forest land. Together, this industry remains one of Maine's largest economic engines, sustaining 29,000 jobs spread across all 16 counties in the state, anchoring rural communities and contributing $8.3 billion to the state's economy. When forest products businesses struggle, entire regions of Maine feel the impact. We recognize and respect that this committee played a central role in establishing the Paid Family and Medical Leave Program. With the benefits side of the program set to launch in May, our members are committed to complying with the program in a responsible and sustainable way. LD 2018, however, presents a challenge for many employers in our sector. The bill would prohibit employers with private self-insured paid family medical leave plans from pooling risk, financial resources, or administrative services. For small and mid-sized forest products businesses, which make up a majority of our membership, the ability to share administrative functions is not a workaround. It's the only practical way to manage costs while staying competitive in this global market. Pooling is a standard cost-effective practice used across industries to avoid duplicating the same administrative systems over and over. Removing this option forces each employer to build and maintain their own standalone administrative structure. That shift increases overhead without improving benefits, and it diverts resources away from wages, training, safety investments, and other supports that directly benefit workers. And you actually heard from one of our members earlier from Robbins Lumber, that actually demonstrated how they would use some of those cost savings. Compliance with this new program must remain feasible for the businesses that keep Maine's forest economy strong. This bill makes compliance more expensive, less predictable, and less efficient. Outcomes that ultimately weaken the very communities that the program is meant to support. For these reasons, we respectfully urge the committee to vote ought not to pass. And I don't have 3 teenage boys, but I do have a 2-month-old puppy that just came home a couple days ago. So if I acted a little tired, you know why.
After having a number of puppies in my household, I prefer the teens. I do have one question for you. How many of your members would this affect, or is this affecting right now?
So we actually started a really quick survey because I was anticipating that question. So I think the quick answer is most of our members have self-insurance programs. Most of them are not using the state program. At least a few of them would consider this program. And we're in the process of actually planning to use it when the state said timeout.
So a small portion of those self-insured were considering.
Correct. No one in the state program that we're aware of.
Gotcha. Thank you
would
very
move
much.
over.
Additional
So-
questions? Seeing none, thank
Great.
you very
Thank
much for
you.
your time. Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition? I know, it's like, it was on in the like, oh, come on.
Well, my name is Rob Shibley from Bob's Cash Fuel from over in Madison, Maine.
It is on here. We're just not seeing. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
I kind of wish I had some of them fresh baked cookies right now. It'd be pretty good. I oppose the LD 2018. I'm down here today. It's a cold day, and I should be out delivering oil or propane with my crew. There's 59 of us, and my customers as well as my employees have choice. They don't have to work for Bob's Cash Fuel. They can go anywhere. So if we're not providing the benefits that they need, they're going to leave us and go somewhere else. There's a lot of good employers in Maine that will take them on because they're a good group of people, and I'm lucky to have them. We've been taking care of our employees since 1981. Like I said, there's 59 of us, and if health insurance falls short or if our benefits package falls short, we've been paying for that long before this whole thing came up, and we're going to continue to take care of them. And for us to, no different than Robbins Lumber, our pool is only so much, and we want to do as much as we can so they can continue working for us. So being efficient with this program is everything. And I think it's crazy to think that we will not be audited. Trust me, though they audit me every day. If I'm doing something wrong, and if this plan does not come through, they're going to come to me, and I am going to fire the person responsible for that and find something different, whether it's the state or somewhere else. So I thank this committee for talking and listening to us, but give us the ability to fire the person. Now, if it's the state of Maine, I can't, it is what it is. If they spend too much on their administration, where do I go? I go nowhere if I have no choice. This gives me a choice. So I encourage you guys just to let me do my job and take care of my people. And the whole idea about being the insurer of last resort, or I'm pretty sure the state of Maine is going to come to Rob Shibley if I don't pay my benefits. Eventually, they may take care of them, but eventually, they're going to come find it. So, if we can get together as a group, no different than if a group of people decide they won't buy fuel oil from Bob's Cash Fuel and get a better rate on a street, and they all live on Pine Street. I don't get one check from Pine Street. It's all individuals. If they group together and call me and say, "Can you offer a better rate?" Well, that happens all the time. That's all we're asking. Let's just get a little better rate on that. And if we can build a better mousetrap and save on our administration, then why wouldn't you do it? Let's not forget why we're here and why we're doing this. It's for the employees. So let's not forget that. That's all I got.
Thank you. I do have a quick question. So was your was your business part of the pool, or is that something you're thinking of right now?
It is part of it. We're self-insured,
Mhm.
like the pool, and we're trying to manage our expenses.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions? Yes, Representative Drinkwater.
Yes, if everybody at this horseshoe wanted to know what the cash price for number 2 fuel was today, what's the best we can do? And we do have cookies.
You come see me after, maybe we can talk about a good deal for you.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Collins.
When you buy a truck, can you tell me how much one of your new trucks would cost for oil?
It's for a new old truck, just the chassis alone is going to be 225 to 230,000 all put together. Yeah.
And if you were to buy a fleet of trucks, is it possible that you would get a discount on the truck?
It is, yes. If I go to the same guy every time, he's going to help me out. Yeah.
Okay, and you do that, I presume, because you're looking to help your employees, maybe you pass those savings on to them?
Every penny, and which is why I'm taking the time out to be here today, every penny I can save on that truck is a pool left that I can do their Christmas bonus, their 401k, or if their workers' comp isn't covered in the way that I think they should be, and they need to be helped out, and I pitch in, or if they need that extra day or two or week off that we cover, even though it's not within our benefit package, those are the funds that we say we can use for those extra things for them. Yeah.
Madam, one more question. Thank you. And then finally, I presume that you're Bob's Cash Fuel because maybe you pass some of those savings on to your customers as well.
Absolutely. You got to be, have to have a good price and good service, right?
We don't charge anything for commercials during during committee.
You're welcome to call 696.
Additional questions at all? Seeing none, thank you so much. Folks that wish to testify in opposition, thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Gil Tebow, resident of Waterville, Senior Vice President of Sheridan Construction. I'm appearing before you today to oppose LD 2018. We're a commercial contractor. Sheridan is a commercial contractor. We've been in Maine since 1947. We employ nearly 100 people working on projects from Fort Kent to Kittery. When Maine's Paid Family Medical Leave Program was enacted, we made the careful decision to pursue a self-insured private plan. As a longtime member of a successful workers' compensation self-insurance trust, it was a familiar model for us, but it wasn't a decision we took lightly. We studied the law closely to ensure we met every requirement. We were convinced that a private plan could provide reliable benefits for our employees while managing our long-term costs. In May of 2025, the Department of Labor approved our private plan substitution. That approval validated the time, effort, and expense we had invested to comply with the law as written. LD 2018 would pull the rug out from under us. It would effectively eliminate our ability to continue with our plan by creating new barriers that are costly and impossible to meet on this timeline. There's no practical path for us to replace what we've already built, and the increased costs of bonding and administration will likely put self-insurance out of reach for small businesses of our size. Now, to be clear, we support the program. Our opposition to this bill really doesn't have anything to do with the paid family medical leave program itself. We just believe that employers who followed rules and received approval should not have the ground shift beneath them. We also don't believe that we pose any risk to the system. The state fund, as has been discussed here today, was reported to have a $222 million fund balance at the end of last year. And in 10 years, it's supposed to grow to 429 million. That projection accounts for companies like us that choose a private plan. Our trust is just 52 employers, which is about 1/10 of 1% of all the employers. We're no threat. Last session, this committee largely held that the PFML law should be given time to work, and let's not tinker with it. With benefits about to go live, we couldn't agree more. Now is not the time. And it's for new and especially for retroactive restrictions. We made careful, good faith decisions based on the law as originally enacted, and we simply ask for consistency and fairness moving forward. Sheridan Construction would urge this committee to vote ought not to pass. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll be happy to do my best with any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Oh, Senator has, I believe we do have one question, sir. Sorry.
Oh, very good.
Senator.
Yes.
Are you forced right now to pay into the state fund? Are they forced you to do that?
No, but that's a bit of a cloud hanging over us right now. We're not really sure where things are going to shake out. Yep. Yep.
And we have a follow-up from Representative.
Well, the good senator started it. I find it curious that the state says self-insure workman's comp, self-insure this, self-insure that, but they don't trust you to share with a surety bond to save money. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, one of the things that was frustrating to hear before, really the security, if you read the law now, the security is the bond. It exists. If we fail, the bond pays the state for the premiums that we would have had to remit had we been part of the state program. So I don't really see how, in the hypothetical that a company fails in their administration of their own plan, I don't see, the state's protected with this bond. So the money is going to come to the state's going to be the last resort, and everybody goes on about their business. So yeah, did that answer your question?
And again, the only thing you're asking for is to share in the cost of the surety bond. So a group purchase of a surety bond would save everybody money.
Right. That's correct.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Representative Collins.
It seems the question I want to ask is, you did fill out all the paperwork for self-insurance, is that correct?
We did. We were completely approved in May and high-fiving. And then that sort of fell apart a couple months later. We're technically still approved, but what the Department of Labor had us do was to sign, I'm going to say under duress, we had to sign an attestation that we would not cooperate with anybody outside of our company in providing our self-insurance plan, which, again, we didn't have much choice because the penalty that the Department of Labor had presented was that if we didn't sign, we would be barred from doing anything for 3 years. We'd be stuck in the state plan. And we didn't, that's a pretty big risk. So we didn't want to take that risk. So, yeah.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Guy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you just talk a little bit about why your being in the state plan presents such a risk?
Well, yeah, I'll be honest. I don't trust the state. Part of the reason is this recent interaction with the Department of Labor. So I don't trust the state. And then it also stems from our experience that we've had very good luck cooperating with other companies in similar industries. And I'll use workers' comp even though it's a completely different program as an example. But the companies in our workers' comp trust, we all work together to improve safety programs and to find better ways to do things. And that we have collaborative meetings to exchange ideas. So for us, it gives us a lot more control. Kind of like the guy from Bob's Cash Fuel was saying, we're in control. So if something goes wrong, we can fire whoever caused the problem, or we can address it. Whereas you end up in a state program and you kind of really, you don't have a voice, I guess, in your destiny. That's just my feeling. Yeah.
So you are not pooled with anyone else. You are self-insured. You have put your own money into some kind of trust for for starting May 1st, your employees to be able to take FMLA.
Well, we're self-insured right now. So standing on our own, it's more expensive this way, and we're hoping to go back to the less expensive option.
All right, so you are self-insured now. It's more expensive than the state program, so this is really an ideological choice for you.
Well, no, I didn't say it was more expensive than the state. Well, yes. What the state's forcing us to do now is more expensive than the state program. What we had planned to do, we expected was going to be less. So that opportunity went away. And then the other thing I'd like to address, since you kind of brought it up, was that I don't know that there's no verification, as far as I'm aware, when, say, Bath Iron Works says, I'm going to self-insure. They submit a plan just like we do. They're by themselves because they're huge. Nobody checks to see how are they funding that. What are they setting that money aside? As far as I know, there's no oversight at this point for these large employers that have been approved. So really the issue that we stumbled into was that, oh, you're working with other employers. That's the way I see this. Because, if we could have, we can do our own self-insurance, just very expensive. Because we're small, and when we go to an insurance company to buy a policy, we're small, and we have the same problem with health insurance. We don't represent a big pool, so when we go out to get insurance for our employees, it's a challenge for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Representative Collin.
Do you have a percentage of what you would have saved had you been able to remain in the pool?
I have a dollar figure, and this would just be would just be what we paid in premiums. And I think it would be at least 10,000 a year that we would save if we could go back to the plan that we had planned to do in May. Yeah. And to key into what everybody else said, every dollar counts in our business. Construction is a thin margin business. So, it's been very, very frustrating to get forced into a higher cost option.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition?
Good afternoon. I'm going to echo a lot of things that you've already heard, so I'm going to try to be brief. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your time and your patience today and for your work on this issue and all of your efforts for the state of Maine. My name is Aaron Crawford. I'm here representing Sabre Yachts and Back Cove Yachts, and they're two boat building companies here in Maine with a 56-year history and 250 associates between our Rockland and Raymond facilities. Our workforce and our companies would be directly impacted by LD 2018. When LD 1964 established Maine Family Medical Leave, we carefully reviewed the law and made a deliberate commitment to our associates that we would absorb the full 1% of the payroll deductions so that it would not impact their employee take-home pay. At the same time, based on our experience and scale, we elected to opt out of the state-administered plan and self-insure to allow flexibility and cost control. It has been suggested that employers who opted out of the state plan did not support PFML. That characterization is inaccurate. Our benefits package clearly demonstrates that we support programs that strengthen our workforce. We plan to continue to fully fund our 26-week short-term disability program and fully support the goals of the PFML. Our decision to self-insure reflects experience, not opposition. For more than 20 years, we've successfully self-insured our workers' compensation coverage through a group trust. That model has allowed us to improve workplace safety and achieve cost structure that outperforms traditional options. 4 years ago, we extended that approach by self-insuring our healthcare plan through a group captive. And as a result, we were able to offer Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare to all of our associates with no premium contribution. So yes, that's free healthcare. That outcome would not have been possible without the flexibility to collaborate with third-party administrators and service providers. We recognize that PFML is a benefit program rather than a traditional insurance product. However, LD 2018 is narrowly written and highly restrictive. It would prohibit small and mid-sized Maine employers from collectively engaging in third-party services such as surety bonds and plan administrations that are already required under the PFML framework. The practical effect of this legislation would be to increase costs for self-insured employers without providing any additional protections or oversight. All self-insured PFML participants are already required to post surety bonds, and oversight mechanisms are already in place. Preventing employers from working collectively does not reduce risk or improve compliance. It simply limits competition and drives up administrative costs. Sabre Yachts will continue to meet the obligations under Maine's PFML program for self-insurance regardless of the outcome of this legislation. However, passage of LD 2018 would unnecessarily restrict employer choice, reduce marketplace competition, increase all of our costs, particularly for Maine-based manufacturers and small businesses who are just trying to do what's right for our employees. For those reasons, we respectfully urge you to oppose LD 2018. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Geiger.
Just want to say it's lovely to see you again. Mr. Crawford invited me to take a tour of Back Cove Yachts several weeks ago, and I had a great time, and it was a great organization. So you've heard the testimony here. You've heard it from the department. You can see what we're trying to wrestle with. This sounds like, unfortunately, vague statute that didn't address it either way. Each side took away from that statute what they thought was obvious to them.
Yep.
You were used to using a group trust and assumed that because it didn't explicitly say you couldn't, that made sense. You'd done it lots of times before. The department saw that it had never been discussed. It wasn't on the table, and were surprised when they discovered it. So now we're here with this bill before us, trying to figure out how to ensure a success, or I can't speak for all of us, there were many here that were opposed to FML, but you and I both appreciate what this is trying to do.
Yeah.
So now I think our job, and if you have any insights into it, is to try and figure out how to make sure we have a highly successful PFML that is successful, not just in the next couple of years, but in 10 years, 20 years down the road, without making you pay additional costs. But do you see the possibility, given how successful their the current amount that they have and expect to get, that they expect to see rates come down from 1%?
Mm-hmm.
And I know at the moment you're sort of paying that full 1%. Does that at all sort of take the sting away?
So that's a
all of it.
a long
I
question to
appreciate it.
unpack. And I'm not in the insurance business or a lawyer. I believe that not restricting something in legislation allows for it to be done. As a person operating a business, I think it's incredibly frustrating to get down a track, make investments of time and treasure to get a plan in place to then have it deconstructed. That is frustrating. Frankly, our experience in self-insurance is that we are willing to take on the work to be the middleman. We're not talking about huge sums of money, but every point of margin that you've heard from every business owner here enables us to do things for our employees and do things for the business. So that's what we're looking to do. And this is a benefit to our team. We don't see this as a profit center. Aflac is a for-profit business that answers to shareholders. So they're obligated to make money. And I think the incentive structure of the state plan is troubling. In reading the legislature, it seems to me that Aflac is incentivized to have the biggest pool they can get. They want to pay as many claims as they possibly can, because the bigger the pool is, the bigger their percentage is of income for administration. I want our associates to have a good plan. I want them to have the support they need when they have to go out of work. I'm less interested in supporting a third-party insurance company. That drove our decision to be self-insured. And that played into our decision for health insurance as well. It's the same process. It's a lift. It's a lot of work, but we save money as a result.
Thank you. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford, for being here. Reading your testimony here that you're able to offer health insurance at no cost, doesn't that show that when business communities put a bunch of heads together and think things through, they can economize, and that helps their businesses to grow?
That's exactly how the health insurance captive works. We hold each other responsible for performance, and we inform each other in good practice. I mean, health insurance is no mystery. Healthy people reduce your healthcare costs. So the conversations we have around the table are, how do we have healthy people? The conversation around this group that would be working together would be, how do we support our associates and make sure they get what they need at the most reasonable cost? And to answer your question, I think Representative Geiger brought up, if our whole workforce goes out on PFML-A, we're out of business. So I have a lot bigger issues to solve than how the funding structure is of this group. So,
and one just last comment, if I may. Sometime around the 4th of July, most of us would be available for a ride.
you see a lot of our product at DeMillo's right outside the restaurant. So.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Additional folks in the room who wish to testify in opposition?
Oh, sorry.
Representative Rader and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Alexander Price, and I'm here testifying in opposition to LD 2018 on behalf of the Maine Jobs Council, which is a statewide, nonpartisan, member-driven advocacy organization focused on advancing public policies to support the creation and preservation of foundational jobs in Maine. We oppose LD 2018 because it would impose new administrative and financial burdens on employers who have already invested significant time, resources, and administrative effort to comply with Maine's paid family and medical leave law. These additional requirements are proposed without evidence of shortcomings in benefit delivery, employee protections, or fund solvency. And that concern is particularly acute given the broader economic context. So you've heard a lot of things here today, so I'll take it in a little bit different direction. As you probably heard me say many times last year, a recent assessment of the competitiveness of Maine's statewide economy by the Porter Development Initiative found that Maine's economy is not growing at rates comparable to most other states in the nation. We're one of the least productive. We create fewer jobs, attract less investment, start fewer businesses. In light of that, in recent years, employers have faced a growing number of regulations, including the PFML law, which is already among one of the most generous in the country. And now is not the time to impose new administrative and financial burdens, which is what we believe LD 2018 would do. The law was intentionally designed to give employers flexibility, and that flexibility is important. And the employers that are here today, and to your question, I'm not sure how many of our members are affected, but there are additional people that aren't testifying, but if you want to meet them, we'd be happy to have them stand up and introduce themselves. But employers that choose to self-insure are not seeking to avoid their obligations. They're fully committed to providing PFML benefits. They're meeting all the statutory requirements through a more efficient, accountable, cost-efficient administrative structure. The issue before the committee is not adequacy of benefits or employee protection, but cost and efficiency. LD 2018 would penalize employers that have acted in good faith by layering on new restrictions related to self-insurance and employer cooperation. I would note, this is, I think, a question that's been asked a couple times, it's important that the December 2025 actuarial report identified no solvency or participation risk from our point of view that would justify prohibiting employers from cooperating to reduce administrative costs. I believe at the last PFML Benefits Authority, they even mapped out what they called an extreme scenario where 50% of businesses from the current 33% choose the private opt-out plan, and that would reduce the surplus from 429 by about 150 to 200. So they would still have a surplus of almost $250 million. And that, as they said, was an extreme scenario. So we think that individual pieces of legislation like LD 2018 are not the solution to solving our state's economic problems. So, if Maine is not competitive and productive place for business, workers, and families, its economic plans will falter. Maine needs to develop a comprehensive, integrated, and strategic plan that focuses legislation, regulation, and public policy on talent attraction, investment, and job creation. So with that, I'll thank the committee for its time and consideration of this issue, and we'd welcome any opportunity to discuss it with you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Collin.
One company indicated that they would have saved $10,000 being able to do the group. Do you have any idea of what the savings would be with the combined 50 some odd companies?
I don't have that. There is a gentleman coming after me that may have that information. What I think I do know is that obviously the surety bond prices would double because they got half off. Third-party administrative costs would increase by about 15 to 20%, and claim system costs would increase by about 7%. But that's just what I've been told. There is a gentleman following me that may have more information.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional folks who wish to testify in opposition?
Got a healthy sign-in list here. Well, I don't know. I'm on the last line. Yeah, there's room for a few more. Representative Rader, members of the committee, my name is Bruce Garrity. I'm here on behalf of several different clients concerned with this legislation and testifying in opposition to it. Rather than say most of what I was going to say, since you've heard it perhaps ad nauseum, let me make a couple of different points and give you one solution to seriously consider. First, to the extent anybody's concerned about sureties, Arch itself has an annual revenue of $17.4 billion. Another company, Chubb, has annual revenue of $55.4 billion. They don't share their net results, and that's sort of secret stuff. But It's in the billions of dollars. So to the extent anybody's concerned about whether performance under a bond is possible, it's not beyond possible. It's pretty much absolute, and the Bureau regulates them. One of the things you've heard is that perhaps this is difficult to regulate. The sponsor said it's not closely regulated. The department said we don't have enough control. Well, if you want to move ahead in this direction, I have a solution for you. It is not uncommon in the state of Maine to have joint rules. Let's have the Bureau of Insurance regulate the self-insurance aspects of this program. The Bureau has a director of alternative markets. It regulates, among other things, workers' compensation, MIWAs, which are multiple employer welfare arrangements, captives, and various other kinds of what you might call alternatives to classic simple insurance. They not only have a director of alternative markets, they have a staff to handle these kinds of things. And before someone says, well, what's this joint rule stuff? Well, let me give you some examples. The Bureau of Financial Institutions, Rule Chapter 138, and the Bureau of Consumer Credit Protection, Chapter 240, jointly regulate truth in lending, which is a consumer protection statute. There's a tripart rule between the Bureau of Financial Institutions, that's Chapter 139, the Consumer Credit Code, Chapter 400, and the Bureau of Insurance, Chapter 880, on the sales of financial products to supervised lenders. The Department of Labor has a joint rule with the Department of Economic and Community Development on training initiatives. Joint rules work. I would suggest this is a classic opportunity, if you choose to go in this direction, to say, let's give the issue of self-insurance to people who know self-insurance. On the one hand, this sounds like pretty easy stuff. On the other hand, take the workers' compensation statute. These statutes, sections 401 to 409, comprise 69 pages. The regulations comprise another 59 pages. That's for one line of alternative markets. And believe me, because I deal with them every day on this stuff, you do not want to get on the wrong side of the Bureau of Insurance. I see my time is up, Representative. I appreciate your indulgence for a little bit longer, and I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. You said earlier that you represent several clients. Who are you representing on behalf of?
Sure. A&A Brochu, Auburn Manufacturing, Cedar Works, Inc., C.N. Brown Company, C.O. Beck & Sons, Colby and Gale, Coots Brothers, Daigle Oil, Hano Brothers, H.O. Bouchard, Howell Laboratories, the Maine Energy Marketers Association, the Mid-Coast Energy Systems, Inc., North End Composites, PV Manufacturing, Penquist Community Action Program, Pine Tree Fence, Pleasant River Lumber, Pleasant River Lumber of Enfield, Prescott Metal, Robbins Lumber, East Baldwin, Robbins Lumber, otherwise, Sabre Yachts, Seaboard Drilling, Sheridan Corporation, Sheridan Construction Corporation, Standard Waterproofing, SW Cole, Treeline Inc., VL Tamaro, and VL Tamaro Inc.
So you think that this should go to joint rules? You think
I
this is the
think
right
that's an
place for this?
alternative for you to look at. I mean, frankly, I would chide the department a little bit for bringing so broad a rule in where the nuances are important. But other than killing the bill, which I think would be a totally appropriate result, if you wanted to express concern about the self-insurance piece, give it to the Bureau of Insurance, have them work with the department, but handle that piece of it. Truly handle it.
Follow up? Thank you. Can the department go back into routine technical rulemaking? Can they go in there and handle
Well,
it
the
themselves and make a
statute says
change?
the department can work in collaboration with the Bureau. And my understanding is that that was not a robust relationship here. I think
Really?
that if you wanted to go that route, Representative, the best approach would be to put in a requirement in statute that says
Yeah.
in regulating this particular program. The Bureau of Insurance shall regulate and make sure that the money's there, the administration is there, all the things that people might be concerned about, which the Bureau deals with every single day, are taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional folks in the room who wish to testify in opposition?
Representative Rader and members of the committee. My name is Louise Wilkinson. I'm here on behalf of Warren Brick Company. We literally make products out of dirt. So in essence of time, you've heard a lot of what, I'm not going to read my testimony. You've heard a lot of it. I just want to highlight a couple things that I haven't heard. You know, we have 3 options. When this came out, when our employees first started seeing their paychecks hit for that 0.5%, they came to me and they said, I want to opt out of this. Well, we all know that's not an option, and this is for their benefit. So I sat down and said, how can we make this easier for our employees, who many of them live paycheck to paycheck? I looked at all the options, and we decided to go with the self-insured route and pooling of resources. And with that, we told our employees, you're not going to pay that as of April 1st. You're not going to pay that 0.5%. The company's going to cover that for you. And so we are going to self-insure. We were approved. We also were sent a letter, and we had to pull out of the trust, whatever it was. But my thing is, I feel this is very discriminatory. We have these insurance companies that are going to make money off of this, administering this program. We have these large employers that have such a big staff, it's like a blip to them. But for us, if we can pool our resources and save on the administrative costs, we're going to pay the benefit to the employee. We want to pay the benefit, that's not a question. But why does the Bureau have such a problem with us pooling our resources with other employers to save money? We have 40 employees. We're not a large company. And I know some of this question has been asked. What if this passes and we're not allowed to pool our resources? If our costs continue to go up, our employees are going to see that feedback in their paychecks. I mean, that's the reality of it. There's, in this economy, we're not a company that has unlimited cash resources. And so the choice that we made was the one that would be the most cost-effective administratively, and we want to pass those savings on to our employees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any questions? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. Were you hands-on with this application process to be
We applied. We were approved. We have a bond.
Did the DOL, or the paid family medical leave, do they look at your finances before they approve you?
Well, we have a surety bond. So to be honest with you, I don't know that we submitted our financial statements directly to the DOL.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Representative Geiger, followed by Representative Soboleff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. So your employees need to pay 0.05, so 0.5%
of their wage.
Which, if you're making $20 an hour for 40 hours a week, is $4.
Yeah.
And you're saying that many of your employees came to you and saw that as an issue?
Yeah, a lot of these hardworking Mainers see an extra tax in their paycheck, and they're upset. They don't want to pay any more taxes. They work hard, and they want to keep as much money in their paychecks. So to me and you, that $4 does seem like not a big deal, but it adds up, right? They look at the $4, they look at the Social Security taxes, the federal taxes, the real estate taxes, they go on, and they don't want to pay any more taxes. And we want them to keep as much money in their pocket. And so we want to cover for them what we can.
Representative Sobolewski.
Thank you, Representative. You said you're pooling now?
We were going to pool. We're waiting for all of this to settle out. We're self-insured and we're going to self-insured. So whether we hire a TPA on our own and pay a higher rate, or if we can if we can pool and get a discounted rate on our bond and TPA services, that's where the savings is going to be.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time. Do you have additional folks in the room who wish to testify in opposition? Going once, going twice. All right. Do we have anyone online? Do we have anyone in the room who wishes to testify neither for nor against, but in order to provide additional information? Seeing none and none online, correct? I believe we can close this public hearing for LD 2018. And thank you to everyone in the room for your patience. We know it was a longer day than perhaps you expected, so thank you. Go to 2089. And folks, we will begin the next public hearing, which will be on LD 2089. Oh, sorry. We're going to skip 2089 and go to 2101 because we're waiting for the bill sponsor. So we will go to 2101. I'm the sponsor. I will be presenting that shortly.
How you doing? Nice to see you.
Thank you.
I mean, it's well, perfect. So they have to look at it. Yeah, I saw that guy. I know my brain went.
And just before I get started, Representative Skold has the gavel while I am presenting the bill. Good afternoon. I am very pleased to be looking you all in the face. That's a change from sitting at the Horseshoe. This is a department bill, and it addresses a very narrow but very important administrative gap in the employment security law. The bill establishes a modest, clearly defined penalty when a payment is returned for reasons such as insufficient funds or a closed account. This creates consistency and helps ensure the integrity of the system without being punitive. Because this proposal is technical in nature and relates directly to program administration and enforcement, the Department of Labor is far better positioned to speak on the operational need, fiscal impact, and implementation details. I'll defer to them for that discussion, but I appreciate the department for bringing this forward and would urge the committee to support LD 2101. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I am able to.
Does the committee have any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you to Representative Drinkwater for not asking any questions.
Good job. I'd now like to ask if there's a representative from the department who would like to speak. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Representative Rader and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor. My name is Suzanne McKechnie. I'm the Director for the Bureau of Unemployment Compensation with the Department of Labor. I'm here to testify in favor of an agency-initiated bill to establish a monetary fee for employers whose unemployment insurance contribution payments are returned as unpaid. LD 2101 is an agency-submitted bill which addresses a single, very narrow omission in current UI law. Employers may remit their UI contributions to the UI Trust Fund through several methods, including ACH credit and debit, credit card payments by phone or paper check. Under current law, when a payment initiated by an employer is rejected for reasons such as insufficient funds, error made on the account closure, non-existent account, a $20 fee is assessed to the Bureau by the bank. That fee is currently absorbed by the agency. In addition to the bank fee, rejected payments create administrative expenses related to staff time, paperwork, and mailing costs. The agency spends approximately another 200 hours of staff time annually processing these rejected transactions. This proposal aligns with existing provisions under Maine Revenue Services, MRSA 36187B5. Until approximately 6 years ago, UI contributions, by and large, were collected for us by MRS, who then passed the contribution on to us, and MRS law was leveraged for these types of events. Due to a change in the process, UI contributions are now exclusively payable directly to the BUC. Under this bill, any fees resulting from a rejected payment would be assessed to the employer responsible for the payment. The proposed penalty would be $25 or 1% of the payment due, whichever is greater. On average, the agency processes approximately 350 rejected payments annually, and that has totaled over about $125,000 since that change was made. I thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have now or during a future work session.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any committee members who would like to ask a question? I see Representative Beck.
Thank you, Representative Skold. If I write a check knowing that it's going to bounce, that's a violation of law, is it not?
Yes.
If an employer knowingly fails to, make the contribution, is that not a violation of law as well?
Yes, it would be. We just, currently MRS has a specific statute that says if a check bounces, right, a bounce check is what we're talking here, the fee goes back to the employer. We have no such statute, and we used to rely on the MRS statute because they were capturing a lot of our UI contributions, and we were able to lean on their statute. So since we made that change about 6 years ago, we just never caught up our statute with that, and that's what it's an errors and omission that we're looking to correct here because it's adding up.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. There are people that still write a check because the IRS requires direct deposit.
It could be anything. It could be ACH credit, ACH debit. It could be a credit card payment that bounces. So it's not just paper checks, but paper checks tend to be most comparable to if I bounce a check as a consumer, nobody's paying that fee for me, right? So that's really what we're here to close the loop on.
So what you're saying is even with direct deposit, sometimes there's a problem?
It could be, yes,
It
if it's
could
been
be.
ordered. Correct.
Do you have any data to show us how many times this is happening?
It happens between 300 and 400 times a year. So I put it at 350 on average a year is what we're seeing, checks that bounce. And yes, so it does happen quite frequently.
Any further questions from the committee? Yes, Senator.
Yes, thank you. So this is actually costing us money.
It's costing the agency money.
Agency money, to the tune of about 125,000 a year.
It's not 125,000 a year. We made a change about 6 years ago, so it's been about 125,000 since that
Oh,
time.
okay, okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I now ask, is there anyone in the room who'd like to testify in favor of this bill? Are there any online? Are there any in the room who'd like to testify against, in opposition to this bill? Any online? Is there anyone seeking to provide testimony neither for nor against? And none online, we will close the hearing for LD 2101.
At this time, we have one more bill advertised for hearing, and we're just waiting to get the sponsor in here. So I will say at ease until, yes, Representative.
Thank you, Representative. I'm sorry, I had hit the men's room and I didn't see the end of that last bill. I was going to ask that someone from the Bureau of Insurance and Director Monahan be here for the work session. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're going to be at ease for about 5 minutes, 3 minutes while we wait for the bill sponsor to get here. Not in our rules, but
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And we did hear you'll be right over, so hopefully that's true.
I had the going yesterday. Oh, I know. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It's so good.
This is, that's bad. I'm like,
On Wednesday night?
Oh, that's right.
Eventually. Yeah, I know. I'm not staying. Unless they. I got every now. We didn't have a lot. If you see Bill from. No, I know. I know.
Yes.
Instead of running up the fist, so I think. But everybody's gone. If Bill, he's still at work for. As our senator, he can do whatever the hell we want.
Oh, that's my time.
I stapled it.
That was
Because
I had to work session.
Yeah.
He's just.
It was.
I would like to know what.
That is all right. We had some members step out very briefly for other things, but we still technically have quorum. So I will now open the public hearing on our last bill of the day, which is, pardon me, LD 2089, and I welcome the sponsor to present it.
Thank you so much for being here. I get the rare pleasure of having two bills being heard simultaneously in two committees. And I also don't have a written testimony for you. The core of this is that this was a department bill coming from the Department of Labor. Okay, thank you. And with the idea that we needed to have some level of regulation in the state of Maine for, thank you. Have regulations in the state of Maine that were not tied to the federal regulations around agricultural worker housing. with the understanding that there may be changes coming from on the federal level that will affect worker housing regulations here. We wanted to be able to create our own regulations that hopefully have the input of our own stakeholders, our own agricultural stakeholders here that work best for Maine. And in light of that, and so the bill as originally presented, we determined was probably not the bill that needed to move forward. We figured that out Friday. We have not drafted anything in the meantime. But the core of this, I think, in consultation with Department of Labor and Dylan, who will be able to explain things hopefully better than I will, is that what we want to do is we want to make it clear that worker housing regulations that this department does have the authority to create worker housing regulations. It would be under Title 26, Section 42. And then from that point, they can start a stakeholder group, or stakeholder meetings, have conversations, bring agricultural representatives in, hopefully also bring in Mano a Mano and other worker groups in to consult on what those regulations should look like, then go into the full routine technical rulemaking process that has public hearings and has everybody part of the conversation. Hopefully I was a little bit clear.
Thank you. So to sum up, it sounds like this bill is about making sure we have a set of regulations that work specifically for Maine, regardless of whatever. We want to decouple it from the federal, but never go below the federal requirements, correct?
Well, I'm not sure. I think that's up to the committee to decide if there should be any relationship whatsoever to what the feds are doing. I think that we probably have our ability to make our own regulations here in the state of Maine that work best for our own farmers, our own farm workers. When it's difficult, when you tell a department to go into rulemaking to say, this is what should come out of your rules, right? Generally, if you want to set levels in the rulemaking as to what you don't want them to go below or go above, that needs to be in statute. So I think that would be up to the committee to say what needs to be in statute. So these kind of regulations that we're talking about are how much water, how quickly the water should come out of the faucet, how much hot water there should be access to, what temperature the room should be able to get to that people are living in, how far apart the beds are in the room, and those kinds of things. So looking at those regulations, I wasn't sure we were ready to put that into statute, but of course that's a conversation for the committee. But having an open stakeholder process that includes all the voices to come up with those regulations seems smart. And I think it also seems smart to have Mainers make those rules for Mainers as opposed to relying on the feds. One other piece is that in ACF committee, we're continually hearing, about the big problems facing agriculture. And one of the biggest is our labor shortage. So making sure that we have a community that's open to migrant labor, that's welcoming. We need those folks here so we can bring the blueberries in, so we can bring the potatoes in, so we can get the cows milked. And so we need to balance those needs. And at the same time, the needs of employers who have a hard time accessing capital and creating that housing. So that's what the ongoing conversation would be.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Yes, Representative Collin.
Are you asking for a working group or a study?
I think what this bill would be clear authorization to DOL to go into a rulemaking process that would inherently have public hearings and create a stakeholder process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Pluker, I'm so sorry I was late, so I might have missed it in your beginning testimony.
I was not articulate, I
So what
promise.
you're saying is that you feel like the Department of Labor already has in statute the ability to do this, and this is simply directing them through technical rulemaking, not substantive, right? Because otherwise substantive, they'd need to come back to us.
It is unclear if they have existing authority to do this.
Oh, okay.
There is and Dylan could probably go into this a little more clearly. So under BOSH, which is Bureau of Occupational Safety Health Standards, there is statute which says that the state of Maine needs to exactly mirror what the feds occupational safety standards say. And that's the core of what the existing bill said. Looking at that, we realized that that the housing, so these particular regulations might better live under the Bureau of Labor Standards. And so I think the bill that we need to write, and I'd love to hear more from the department, is to give explicit authority to the department to set these regulations under the Bureau of Labor Standards.
Follow-up question? So now, who is responsible in ensuring that there's safe housing for farm workers?
I don't know who the inspectors are, but I know that the regulations that we currently follow are in our statute. It says that we follow federal regulations, period. And so what I'm saying is that we should not necessarily follow the federal regulations, but be able to set our own regulations here in the state of Maine.
Got it. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a quick question and then I'll go to the senator. So the hypothetical worst case scenario is that the feds either abandon all regulations and it's just catch as catch can, or put in such high regulations that none of our none of our farmers can meet it.
Right. And so I think that's exactly correct. And the current standards, I think you'd probably find a lot of farmers who feel that they're too high. And then we are also worried that the current administration may drop them too low. And so it might be better to decouple and set our own.
Great. And Senator.
Okay, thank you. So has there been a lot of widespread complaints about the housing? So I guess maybe you just answered that. It's just
from farmers. Farmers who have to build the housing. I know there have been complaints in terms of the level of in the existing rules. There's a lot of detail. So for instance, you need to be able to heat the room to 70 degrees, and probably not all of us live in homes that are at 70 degrees all the time. And so there is questions as to whether those federal regulations work for everybody.
okay. So if we were to decouple from the federal and we adopt our own standards, would that not in and of itself require major substantive rule changes and therefore coming before the legislature?
I think that would be up to this committee to decide whether you would like them to be major substantive or routine technical. In conversation with the department, they preferred routine technical because it was a faster process for them. But we are the legislature, we get to choose. Yeah.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Representative.
Thank you. So I somehow thought that the feds set the floor and that states could go beyond those regulations, but not below them. Is that not?
The current statute says the rules adopted under this subchapter, meaning the rules that dealing with migrant worker housing, must be identical to the federal housing habitability regulations promulgated to protect seasonal and migrant workers under the authority of the Federal Migrant and Seasonal Agricultural Worker Protection Act.
I just didn't know we had the ability to put in statute a lower requirement than the feds, is what I'm really asking.
And maybe this is poor Dylan. I'm quoting him all over the place here. So and you might also hear from Kate, who I've not actually met yet. I've just heard wonderful things about. Is that under Bosch standards, we would not necessarily be able to go lower or higher. That statute would exist exactly as it says, must be identical. But under Bureau of Labor Standards, they've been in conversations with the Attorney General's office, and that's why we should put the authority under the Bureau of Labor Standards as opposed to Bosch.
All right. Additional questions? Yes, Representative Call.
It has the federal, I'm not even sure which department it is, forgive me, agricultural department withdrawn their rules, or you're just trying to do this preemptively in anticipation that they may? I guess I just need clarification on
Yeah,
that.
to my knowledge, nothing has been changed. And also I think to Dylan's knowledge, nothing has been proposed. So really this is just to say we know that the existing rules aren't made by Mainers, by Maine farmers, for Maine farmers, and that at the end of the day, it might be better off if we do that ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Yes, Senator.
Yes, thank you once again. I think you mentioned that the federal government is reviewing what they're doing now. Would it not be wise to wait and find out what they're doing, what they come up with in case they had a portion of the law that says the shall be with the federal primacy would anything we do would be moot.
If they were to pass a law saying that they preempt, that all their rules or laws preempt us, it's possible. Yeah, I think the core of what I'm saying is that I think we are Maine and we should do it. We should set the rules that work best for no other state has wild blueberries, right? And so nobody has that particular industry at that particular time, and the influx of workers, maybe we shouldn't wait for the feds to set those regulations. Maybe we should do it ourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Additional questions? Yes, Raphael.
So a migrant worker who comes to Maine, shows up at a farm, is issued a pillow and says, there's your shack over there. And there's no occupancy standards, or if there are drafts or no running water, who would they complain to? And what would be the result if the government started looking at these places? Do you think they would be fired?
I think that would be a better question for the department I don't know who inspects. There are current regulations, federal regulations are in play in Maine, but I don't know who's in charge of inspecting that housing to make sure that it's adequate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional? Yes, Representative.
I just took a look and it says that the state monitor advocate at the Department of Labor is he's in charge of compliance of housing standards for immigrant workers. Have you discussed this with that office?
Only with, do you know Dylan?
Thank you.
Yeah, Dylan and then Katie over here. Kate. Okay, you do know Dylan then.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
And
Appreciate
at
it.
this time, I'll welcome up a representative of the department.
I'm going to run over there and I'm going to run back. Yeah, thank you.
Representative Rader and members of the committee, I do not have written comment because as the sponsor indicated, this has been a bill in flux and continues to need work. The impetus for the bill is that last year, the U.S. Department of Labor proposed rescinding the final rule that strengthened protections for migrant and seasonal farm workers. That includes, but is not limited to, housing. And the State Monitor Advocate, which is part of the Bureau of Labor Standards, highlighted the issue of the fact that the statute says our housing standard rules have to match the feds. And in the context of the U.S. Department of Labor's kind of overarching rollback of protections across industries, we felt like perhaps we should maintain, right? I think you've heard me talk about maintenance of effort in other hearings. This was meant to give us the opportunity to maintain the protections for migrant and seasonal farm workers. Migrant and seasonal farm workers are not all farm workers. The housing standards that we're talking about are related to those that are most commonly associated with folks working here on an H-2A visa. And I'm going to try to answer everybody's questions that you asked the sponsor if I can. So prior to occupancy, if I'm a blueberry farmer and I'm going to hire folks through the H-2A program because I couldn't find domestic workers, prior to having them come and live, the housing has to be inspected by the Department of Labor. Those inspections happen in the Bureau of Employment Services, not my shop. The inspectors go and make sure that all the things the sponsor talked about, bed spacing, screen doors, temperature, water, all of that, everything is good. And there has to be a certificate of occupancy posted and people come in and they can live. As to the issue of who inspects complaints about housing, that's actually the U.S. Department of Labor because these are private businesses. The Board of Occupational Safety and Health in the state of Maine and our workplace safety enforcement is only for public sector employers. That's why as the bill is written, it doesn't get to what we're trying to do because it's under the Bosch statute, and that doesn't have jurisdiction over private entities. Okay. As to your question about what happens if somebody complains, well, if they complain, it would go to the U.S. Department of Labor. And because of the world we live in right now, lots of people do not want to complain. So we do not have the ability right now to enforce housing standards through the Department of through the Bureau of Labor Standards, workplace safety. If these were labor standards, not safety standards, so they were like part of your conditions of employment under Title 26, we could. So that is where we are headed. My time is up.
It is. If you could, I'll give you my question, which is, are there any other questions you heard today that you would like to answer for us?
So the questions about greater than or less than federal standards. Again, our intent was to preserve the current standards because there is pending a rescission of the protections that were passed in 24 and to roll them back to 22. And we are in a context where at the federal level, there are lots of rollbacks of worker protections. We didn't want to do more. We just wanted to maintain, which actually provides a consistency. You know, an employer who's been making sure their housing meets all the rules knows that the rules are going to be the rules, right? So that was one of the questions. So not to exceed or to lower protections. As to the stakeholder process, so last year, Commissioner Fortman and the State Monitor Advocate convened agricultural stakeholders for preseason and postseason conversations, and we are continuing those because we recognize that the Bureau of Labor Standards didn't have a robust relationship with our agricultural constituents. We believe that and the context of rulemaking would allow us to really put together standards, just like the sponsor talked about, that would work for Maine, that would not be less and probably would not be much more than what we have now. And as to the issue of authority, we do not currently have a statute related to agricultural housing within the employment standards. We have that weird statute that says we must pass regulations that match the OSHA standards, and that's the Board of Occupational Safety. So it would be helpful to have something that expressly said that pursuant to our regulatory authority in Section 42, the Bureau could pursue rules related to agricultural housing for migrant and seasonal farm workers. That's really important because we do have farmers who provide year-round housing for people who work there for years and years. Like my daddy had a farm steward who had a house on our farm in Granger County, and he lived there for 1,000,000 years. That is not the housing we're talking about. Migrant seasonal farm worker housing. It's always a good day when I can talk about daddy.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Representative Drinkwater.
After hearing all that, wouldn't it make sense for us to wait to see what the feds are going to do? I mean, we already have standards in place. It's not as if anything is going to go unnoticed. Wouldn't we make sense to wait to see what the feds are going to do?
Representative Drinkwater, right now, the process at the federal level is they noticed an intent to roll back the protections. The opportunity for public comment has closed, and it is now awaiting federal action. So, I mean, we could wait for them to say, we're rolling them back, and then we're stuck because I am a slow rulemaker. It takes me a while to get through the process. So it could be a year before we are able to do what we need to do. So I would like to get the ball rolling sooner rather than later. This is not the U.S. Department of Labor might do something down the road. That process has been noticed, public comment is closed, and they could issue a decision any day, or maybe never. I don't know.
Okay, additional questions? Yes, Representative Sobolewski, Representative Collins, Representative Geiger.
Thank you, Representative. Do you know what the current standards are, USDOL standards for H2A agricultural housing?
Representative Sobolewski, yes and no. I have them on my desk, so I do know what they are. Do I know them off the top of my head? Absolutely not.
And
The
you can
state
provide
monitor.
them for the work session.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Representative Collins next, followed by Representative Geiger.
This might be a work question, or work session question. If they roll back to the 2022 standards, what is the difference from 24 to 22? Thank you. Unless you know.
Some, Representative Collins, some of the changes would be related to how the housing is characterized. So one of the protections that was added under the final rule was if I'm working on the blueberry farm and you want to come visit me, you can, because I'm living there for the summer. Before that, the employer could say, no, I don't want anyone to come visit you, whether it's a healthcare provider or an advocate or a legislator or anybody. So that is one of the protections, or a friend. So that's the one that sticks in my mind. But for the work session, we can lay out the differences.
Representative Geiger. Senator.
Thank you. So is it conceivable the state could adopt the current federal rules and cement them in statute of rules making without going through a whole process?
Senator Bradstreet, if the legislature wanted to take the current standards and put them into law, you could do that. But for rulemaking, we do have to go through the whole notice and comment process. And that's really important because I don't know everything about everything, thankfully. And so part of the point of that process is to ensure that folks like the organizations like the Farm Bureau and individual farmers and Mono that represents a lot of migrant seasonal farm workers can actually provide real on the ground experience so that whatever the rules are makes sense for Mainers. So yes, the legislature could enact the standards into law the way you do that, but we would not be able to do something outside of the regulatory process.
Additional questions? Yes, Representative Guy.
I don't know if this is many years ago, I worked with an organization that advocated for migrant workers. And a story was told of the time before the federal government set standards. Many states set none. And the reason the federal government set them is because many states set none. And so the way you had to get conditions improved was by shaming or making uncomfortable the farm owners. And I remember a story of a group going to the farm, given a tour of really substandard housing, including outhouses instead of toilets. And as they left the outhouses, they spread flour over the seats of the toilets. And then they were invited in for a chicken dinner at the farm owners. And everyone sat down to eat, and the flies came in covered in flour. And that is how they got bathrooms on that farm. I guess I share the understanding of, well, shouldn't we wait to see how far they're rescinding? But I also don't want to see us suddenly be in a world where there are no rules and we don't care about people. And we don't care what kind of conditions they stay in, particularly in a northern state where it's cold. So are you asking for the ability to make technical changes in the department as you understand what's coming? Or are you asking now for statutes approval to make either substantial or minor technical changes now, and it doesn't really matter what the feds do?
The intent of the bill is to allow the Bureau to promulgate rules that will maintain the housing standards for migrant and seasonal farm workers as they are now. And I'm going to put period at the end of that sentence.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. For the work session, I would like us to look to see if there are any housing standards for farmers. And I'll tell you why I say that is because, did you know that like a hunting and fishing lodge in the state of Maine has to be inspected by DHHS in order to get certification for their housing for clients, et cetera. So I would like for the work session to know if there is any state of Maine housing standards.
May I ask a clarifying question? Representative Drinkwater, are you asking for housing standards that exist for all types of employer provided housing? Are you asking for farm worker housing standards, examples from other states?
Not from other states, but
Okay.
do we currently have housing standards for farm workers? And I think that we can probably sort that out
Okay.
between now and the work session.
And I would like to ask a clarifying question, if I may. Do you mean main standards for farm worker housing over and above what the federal? Okay,
Correct.
cool. And I do have one question for you. You mentioned that this is about promulgating rules, but you also said we had the opportunity to put it into statute, which
Only if you
feels,
want to.
yeah, which feels the best fix, I guess, for this issue.
I think it is a policy decision by the committee and the legislature, whether you want to put it into statute, which is semi-permanent, or whether you want the department, and I do actually mean the department because the Bureau of Employment Standards is kind of involved in all of this too, to have the ability to use rulemaking, which is not speedy, but a little more speedy and flexible. I think that's a policy decision for the legislature.
Thank you very much. Additional questions? Yes, Representative.
I don't know if it's a question so much as, is it possible for the work session to have someone from the Bureau of Employment Services here to talk about what they inspect for? Thank you.
Additional questions? Seeing none, are there other folks in the room who wish to testify in favor? Anyone online? Anyone wish to testify against? All right, welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the Labor Committee. My name is Andy Rothwells. I am from Preddy Flaherty. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Wild Blueberry Commission of Maine. I'm not sure I'm going to read much of Eric's testimony. That is, Eric Venturini is the director of the commission, that you should have a copy of and maybe even seen already online. I know that the biggest concern would be from speaking with Eric and his representation of blueberry farmers, the biggest concern for them would be if you absolutely replicated the current standards again. Their perspective is they simply don't build housing for their workers because they can't meet the standards. So they just don't do it. So if the visa workers come here, they compete in the local housing market for housing. They can't build to those standards, so they don't. And those standards are probably more significant than what you live in. That your own homes, Eric doesn't believe his own home would meet those standards. He was in a meeting with Department of Labor staff a couple weeks ago about this issue, who said, 3 of them said it wouldn't meet, our housing wouldn't meet these standards. Their staff housing wouldn't meet these standards, their personal housing. So I do appreciate Rep. Pluker. We appreciate Rep. Pluker saying Mainers make rules for Mainers. We get that. And we get the concern about a rule being kind of hanging over the head from the federal level. At the very least, we would want any rulemaking to be major substantive. So there is another public discussion that includes you before they are promulgated and accepted. Obviously, we want input, but the farmers want input, but the biggest concern would be simply replicating the current federal rules as strict as they are. We would definitely want a lot of movement in that area to make it possible for farmers to feel they should invest in building this housing. So, you know, Eric, the Wild Blueberry Commission is currently opposed to the bill as written. We'd have to see what Rep. Pluker suggests. Obviously, full respect. The farmers have full love Rep. Pluker, right? So there's no question there. And no, he has our interests at heart. And we don't want to see a stripping of all protections for these workers, obviously. So I guess we'd have to wait and see in that regard, but just want to be clear what the concerns are with simply having the state replicate or take on this role. As you, I apologize that I'm going over, but as you said, Rep. Geiger, I was shocked to learn that we didn't already have the ability to go over the regs. I thought that was a given. So I was shocked that we have written into our statute that they have to mimic them. You know, that's very odd to me. I don't know how that happened, but so I do get that interest in more local control, or at least, I mean, if whatever the standards are, we should be able to, they should be a base at the federal level, not the ceiling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So would you be more comfortable instead then if the bill turned into a task force, time limited, with various, you know, advocates for farm workers, farmers, to figure out what safe, reliable, but simpler, I mean, I understand how exact the rules can become, where essentially it's unaffordable for anybody to build a house.
Right.
With that,
I would have to ask Eric, but I think so, because even, look, I mean, I work for many clients and many committees. All of my clients hate routine technical rules because they hate that it's taken out of your hands and ultimately really does limit their ability to have a very public conversation about whatever the policy is, right?
so whichever way we go, you'd like to see it come back as substantial.
If you, yes,
Rather
yes.
than technical
But
rulemaking, so that
stakeholders
we can
even
look at it.
better to even understand where we're all going. And it really gives you an idea of who's really pushing for no regulations at all and who's being reasonable,
Yeah.
you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Additional questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have additional folks in the room who wish to testify in opposition? And none online? Do we have anybody who wishes to testify neither for nor against, but provide additional information? Welcome.
Good afternoon, Representative Rader and members of the committee. My name is Julie Ann Smith, and I am here representing the Maine Farmers Coalition. I apologize for not providing you with written testimony. I will submit that afterwards, but I ran into Dylan in the hallway, and he said there were some changes coming, and I felt like my testimony was no longer conducive to this discussion. So I think I represent over 300 commercial farms throughout the state of Maine. Almost all of them provide some form of housing. Many of them use both H-2A workers. We have farms that use migrant workers. And there were two significant concerns to us as we read this language. First of all, you know, looking at it from a kind of extreme position, it becomes, well, we don't want to have no regulations, because making sure that our farm workers are respected in the state of Maine, and our state has a reputation for providing healthy, supportive housing that's appropriate for people who are living there, whether it's temporarily or year round. We do not want to become a state that is known for not providing good housing for our workers. We want to ensure that all workers are supported in the state of Maine, and that Maine is a great place for agriculture workers to come. In part, that is because it is very competitive to get especially migrant workers to come to Maine when there are a lot of states that pay better and have basically more opportunity to make more money than there is in the state of Maine. So we're very concerned about if we change from this current requirement that we are matching the federal definition. We did not like rulemaking to happen in the department because we can't change our housing quickly. It's costly. We want the opportunity to be able to say, okay, if we need to now install a second bathroom because we feel that there should be 2 bathrooms in any housing that has more than 10 people, we're willing to do that. But if there aren't grants available, if there isn't capital available, which there typically is not with a farm, we want to make sure that these requirements are able to be upheld by every farm. And, as with this bill, rulemaking, I think within the department level, sometimes there are groups that are left out. I think when we have a public hearing, everyone's aware of it and knows about it and has the opportunity to speak up. And so we would much rather see major substantive rules. We would love to see like a baseline established, because if the feds do decide to repeal all housing regulations, that's not something we would support and that we want. We want to have a baseline, and we would be very supportive of putting that into current Maine statute to protect basic rights for housing for workers. But what we don't want to see is, okay, well, this group gets this requirement, this group gets another requirement. If H-2A workers are required this level of housing, we don't want to see any other group of migrant workers have less than that requirement. So we want it to be easy to implement for all farmers across the state. And we want it to make sure that it is not incredibly costly. And we want to make sure that all farmers have the opportunity to give feedback and prefer to do that with major substantive rules. So apologies for going over my time, but I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will provide written testimony as well.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we will look forward to seeing your written testimony. Thank you very much.
you.
Anybody else in the room who wishes to testify neither for nor against, but provide additional information? And none online? Seeing none? I close the public hearing for this bill. And I just, one moment, please. Mr. Langland, do we have any business with you? And Representative?
Thank you, Representative. I'd like to have the state monitor advocate from the DOL here for the work session for that. They're in charge of, that person's in charge of compliance with the housing standards in agriculture. They'd know. Okay.
Thank you. Yes. And we have made note of that. Anything else from committee members, except they're packing up and I'm keeping them from leaving? Thank you very much for your work today. Thank you, everybody.